Happy New Year's from the Cine-Files. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Happy New Year, everybody. That's me. I was unable to use my system here to make noise, but Happy New Year. We are back in 2026 here. I'm excited for us to introduce our second set of shorts that we're compiling here for people to get a sample of what we do on the Patreon for a lot of our patron followers, and that is doing shorts every week that you can enjoy from Steve and I on a number of topics. And this collection, we go in a lot of directions with this collection, Steve.
Yeah, the last compilation we released was frankly very personal, touching on Rob Reiner and our friendship and a lot of things about kind of how we see the world. And this one's a little bit more in the filmmaking area. It starts off with a heated debate about whether or not art can ever be objective. One of us strongly believed that there were objective elements in art, and the other person denied any such possibility. I'm not going to say who these people are. I don't want to name names. That would be offensive. You will have to listen to the short to know where these sides are. But needless to say, we did not agree.
No, subjectively, you just did a wonderful intro for that short. So,
and I thought it was objectively good.
So I think you know which side we fall on. But yeah, it was a fun conversation. You know, that these are the things that we really enjoy. We don't always agree, and it's kind of rare when we don't agree on things. So when we have a chance to really kind of match our brains in a debate, I think it's always fun to see the back and forth because we always end up friends by the end anyway. So. And this one is a really interesting. And Steve, we got a lot of passionate responses.
Oh yeah,
on both our sides, which from what I saw, which was really interesting to see from our fans, because a lot of people believe what you believe, a lot of people believe what I believe. So it's clearly a topic that has been on the mind of a lot of people as they've processed art their entire lives. You know,
I mean, and I would say if we didn't do a vote, but if we did a vote, I think you would have won.
Wow.
Which means that was my sense of the response. My sense of my anecdotal sense of the response was far more people believed you, which means that far more people were objectively incorrect. And that's, you know, it's just sad. I mean, it's just the world, I guess.
There might be a part two to this discussion.
Well, speaking of part two, this kind of carried on some of the themes because our next discussion was about all of the pressure that social media places on studios, on directors, on actors, on who should be cast in a movie, who is right, who is wrong, what performance is good, what color correction is the one that makes sense. And all of those people think that they're being objective. Yeah. And we have a long conversation of just how destructive that whole thing is to us and to film.
Yeah, I mean, because we have, of course, some experience of being in the game and seeing what the reaction is. We have friends who are in the game, successfully in the game, and you know, we get to see the other side of it as well, what it's like to deal with all the insanity of being in the game and the pressure that's involved, and the reactions from people, from fans, from viewers, from everybody who are involved in the process and making of these movies, and what gets involved for them as they react to it as well. You know, there's been no bigger touchstone right now than James Gunn in how people react to James Gunn and the things that he's doing. And so this short a little bit ties into that because people are always commenting, including me, I'll throw myself in the mix, on James Gunn's casting decisions, on the way he goes about responding to people on social media, why he's on social media. So there's a lot that we kind of navigate here in that short, which I thought was a lot of fun for us to discuss.
Well, and what was also fun to discuss, but came out of what, and I don't think I'm talking out of turn here to say that the Crimson Tide episodes are the most contentious episodes we've ever had in the history of the Cine-Files.
Yeah.
And someone wrote in and made a comparison of Crimson Tide to Captain America Civil War and Denzel and Hackman to Iron Man and Cap. And boy, that led to a really, really fun conversation about those themes.
Yeah, I think so too, Stephen, because so many people want to dismiss these superhero movies as being lightweight or not really discussing big things. But if you can tie Civil War into an incredible film like Crimson Tide and the battles that are going on both overtly and covertly in that movie, I think that speaks volumes to the kind of artistry involved in those MCU films or superhero movies that I think too many people dismiss or overlook. And I'm glad we got a chance to use that through one of our listeners as the parameters or as the foundation for this discussion, because it was definitely something that both of us were very passionate about in our points of views.
And the next short we have posting was really special to me because it was really you helping me to articulate things that I had not been able to articulate ever on the show, which is you made the decision to interview me about editing, a subject I've been kind of cagey about and didn't really know how to express myself. And man, it's nice having a good interviewer because you got me to start talking about it. And there was definitely a point where, and then I couldn't stop talking about it. I was so excited because I had so much to say. And it really is a behind the scenes of both how editing works, but also to some degree how my brain works, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it was a fascinating discussion because it's something we don't really talk about too much because, I mean, Steve does such an excellent job editing the show. And I think one of the big reasons we all enjoy the show is because of Steve's editing style and how he's made it, how it's evolved over the years to mirror how we're changing on the show. And it's been so well. So I've always been fascinated by it because editing is not something that comes naturally to me and is very difficult at times. And sometimes I've talked myself out of doing videos because of the daunting task in my mind of editing them. And so getting a chance to sit down with Steve and hear about his process, how he looks at things, pick his brain a little bit about how he looks at editing and how he approaches editing, I think was really informative. So for people who are listening to us, who are maybe wanting to start a YouTube channel, wanting to get into editing, I think this is a great short for you all to hear about how someone who is so accomplished as an editor approaches their work and approaches how they look to get an overall result that is satisfactory to them.
Well, A, thank you very much. And B, and thank you very much for doing the interview because it really got me to talk about things I was struggling to talk about. And of course, no compilation would be complete without listening to the ultimate in Cine-Files torture. I don't think there's any experience where you and I are just more tense and upset than when we do an FMK.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The FMKs are amazing because the suggestions from the fans, but also the ones we come up with organically as we're doing the show, I think are a lot of fun. So you never go wrong with an FMK, and you'll probably get the most the most unguarded, walls down, honest reactions to questions than you will in the FMK shorts. We just absolutely react to them in the moment and deliver our honest, sometimes impassioned responses and decisions.
It's so painful. And if you enjoy listening to John and Steve be tortured, well, there's a whole hell of a lot more FMKs and all sorts of other shorts on all sorts of other topics available on patreon.com/the Cine-Files, as well as on Apple Podcasts. But right now, there's actually a sale on Patreon. We're offering 25% off on all tiers, both the monthly subscriptions as well as the annual ones. So that's some really good savings. And all you need is the code, which is 9BCA3. You enter 9BCA3 at checkout and you get a discount and can enjoy all of our Cine-Files shorts as well as ad-free versions of the show and even join the Cine-Files advisory board.
Yeah, and although it's the week after Christmas, you can still give gifts. There's nothing that says you can't still give gifts. So if you've got a movie lover on your list that you didn't quite get anything for, I think this is a great gift to give them. Or if you want to start someone's year off great in 2026 by introducing them to our podcast and giving them all access to all the extra stuff we do, then I think giving them the gift of the Cine-Files is a great way to start off their year in a positive frame of mind.
And so we hope you enjoy this second shorts compilation, and we are going to be back to begin the season of Rob Reiner right here on the Cine-Files. Hello and welcome to another edition of Cine-Files Shorts. I am Steve Morris here with my partner, Mr. Jonathan Rocha.
Objectively, yes, it is you and I here on this particular short.
It is objective, and that's really the topic for this short, which is that this is something that came up in our most recent advisory board meeting where you were saying, obviously, all art is subjective, and I went, objection! I object to that statement. I believe there are objective things that we could say about art. Obviously, you and I share a lot of opinions about art and movies and stories and film and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And yet you and I come at this from very different perspectives. So I wanted to hear, why do you think it's so difficult to be objective about art?
Well, I don't think it's difficult to be objective. I don't think it's difficult because it doesn't exist, in my opinion. Because art is always a matter of common opinion. That's always the thing. You can, so when I look at art, it is always subjective. It is because a lot of people feel this way, therefore this is true. Or some people felt this way in the past, and then as the years gone on, more people have agreed with this opinion about this thing. Therefore, it's true for them, and it's been accepted as fact for analysis of movies, right? We see this all the time with 1,001 great movies you got to see before you die or whatever. And it's usually all the great ones that people and critics have overall or overwhelmingly agreed are the great ones. But the agreement is subjective. Therefore, it is always subjective to me, in my opinion. Art has never been objective in any way, shape, or form.
Disagree.
Yeah, I know. That's why we're doing this short.
So here's my feeling is like, it is certainly what I think we sometimes confuse is I think it's humans that have trouble being objective. Like our perspectives are definitely subjective. That's certainly true.
Right.
But I think there are things that we can say about art that are objective.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that you have to like it. That doesn't, there are movies many times in the Cine-Files. We've had movies that were more your movie versus my movie. And we would go like, I don't love this movie. I don't go back to this movie. And yet could still acknowledge all of the points within the movie that are of high quality, even if we don't dig it. So we have like, to me, there's a subjective part. How do I feel about this piece of art? But then there's also, in my opinion, an objective part, which is really, 9 years of the Cine-Files explaining this is why this is good.
But you just said it's your opinion that it's objective, and opinion by its very nature is subjective.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Opinions are certainly subjective.
Yes.
But there are objective things we can say. For instance, I'll take two performances I know that you love. One is Paul Newman in The Verdict.
Sure.
Fantastic, amazing performance.
Sure.
Another is Ben Kingsley in Gandhi.
Absolutely.
And you and I could go through and did go through in incredible detail and explain whether it's the transformation that Ben Kingsley goes through in the course of that film, the way that he moves his body, how convincing he is, or the vulnerability of Paul Newman. We can say, in my opinion, objectively, these are the elements of a great performance. I can't tell you which one to like better.
Right.
But I can say this. You're a big fan of Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I believe that if we were to compare his performance in The Tooth Fairy to Paul Newman's performance in The Verdict, that I can objectively tell you why Paul Newman's performance is better. You can love The Tooth Fairy.
Sure.
That's your subjective opinion.
Sure.
But there are elements that I can cite specifically that show what makes Paul Newman's performance a great one.
Right. And I disagree with that completely, because whatever.
You don't think Paul Newman's performance is better than the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's performance?
I think subjectively, my opinion of his performance is better than The Rock's performance in Tooth Fairy. And you're choosing two massive extremes. I would put, what could you put? It was maybe Buffalo Bob or Buffalo Bill, whatever that film he was in, Paul Newman. It's about comparable to what The Rock did in The Tooth Fairy. But again, that is all our opinion. You can point to him being able to say these words believably in this moment and doing the exhale correctly and doing the eye movements and twitches and all of that. But again, that's all subjective because you felt something, and because you felt something and you recognize it as greatness, therefore it is your opinion that it is great. Another person who is just as intelligent, just as on top of things, just as analytical as you can look at it and be like, I didn't feel a thing. He looks like he's making faces. He's exhaling too much. Why is he using that grumbly voice? That doesn't make any sense. I can't understand what he's saying. So that's what I mean. Every performance, every piece of art, every film, everything comes down to a subjective opinion by a group of people who have either labeled themselves as knowledgeable about this stuff or have been overwhelmingly agreed upon by the public to be considered knowledgeable about this stuff. So, as you said, human beings are not. I think human beings are not capable of objectivity. I think it's always subjective, and everything comes down to an opinion by the human being, learned or unlearned, about a situation. And if we say we're all equal in terms of how we look at things and we respect people's opinions on things, then we have to acknowledge that things are subjective, overall subjective.
No, first of all, I don't think we're all equal. I think everyone is equally entitled to their own opinion.
That's what I mean.
But some people know more about some stuff than other. It's not just that, as you said, that we claim to be an expert at something. Some people are experts at things. Some people know more about things than other people.
Science is not acting. Science is not acting. Science is not filmmaking. Science is not. That's a whole different situation. right?
But
It's like a doctor. That's analytics. From what I've seen of your body and from what the studies are there, this is what needs to happen here. Now, the doctor's not always right, but the doctor thinks objectively they might be right, but they're not always right. Therefore, it's a subjective situation.
let me give you another example.
I think objective can't be disagreed with. That's what I believe.
Well,
That's how
and
the
I
definition
think
is.
there are things that
In
experts.
art.
So, well, let me give you an example.
Okay.
The film Airplane.
Yes.
One of your favorite movies, one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
I believe that objectively, the cinematography in Airplane is less good than the cinematography in Lawrence of Arabia.
Okay.
And I think if you went to the Airplane cinematographer and said, how does your cinematography compare to Lawrence of Arabia?
Mm-hmm.
They would say, Lawrence of Arabia is 100 times better than the cinematography in Airplane.
Sure.
And I do not think I'm simply making a statement about taste.
Well,
I'm making a statement about craft, about scale, about attention to detail, about color control.
Mhm.
I mean, the framing of the shot. There's so many things you can say about a shot in Lawrence of Arabia that I cannot say about a shot in Airplane.
That's fair, but it's also two completely different requirements, because I know the cinematographer of Lawrence of Arabia would not have made Airplane look like Lawrence of Arabia. So it's
because
two
Airplane
different
is
things.
funnier, objectively funnier than Lawrence of Arabia.
Well, I don't know if it's objectively funnier. That's a subjective opinion. Some people may not find Airplane as funny at all and like the little moment with the matches as a funny moment in Lawrence of Arabia. There are elements of humor in Lawrence of Arabia. They may laugh more at Lawrence of Arabia than they do in Airplane. And as we did when we did our breakdown of Airplane, I found a lot of those jokes dated and not as funny as you and Scott Mance did. So those are those things you look at. So a person may watch Lawrence of Arabia and get more and be more entertained on a humor side because of the human humor that happens in the situational humor that happens in that movie, more than some of the jokes and the quips that are happening in Airplane. So again, it is subjective. It is a matter of your personal opinion about what you enjoy and what you like. And I wonder if the cinematographer from Lawrence of Arabia may say to you, how dare you compare me to another cinematographer, because they were doing something completely different. And what they did worked for their movie because their movie was a success. And what I did for my movie worked for my movie because my movie was a success. But we are not necessarily, I'm not going to be put up against this guy as comparing cinematography, right? I mean, I think there's an inherent judgment in the objectivity that you're putting out, but the judgment inherently by its foundation is a subjective thing. It is your judgment, your opinion that this is true. But there could be quite a few people who are like, I don't agree. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's right. Oh, I don't agree with the cinematography here situation, you know?
It's funny. So I really think there's a split here, and it's why I said at the beginning, like, people are not objective, but things can be objective, and so yes, you can say, if I say that this is objectively better than that, you can find fault with my opinion. That's totally fine.
Correct.
But I do think and I think the maybe the broader topic here is, and I'm not saying this is what you're saying at all.
Yeah.
There is an opposition to expertise that has risen very much, particularly in the last 20 years in our world, where we go, well, this is just an opinion.
Right.
And yes, I understand, like, if I said, climate scientist versus someone who knows nothing about climate science.
Right. That's a whole other ballgame. Yes.
But I also go that someone that you and I've heard you say this many, many times.
Okay.
When you've talked about young reviewers who don't want to go back and look at the classics.
Right.
And you say you have to know the classics in order to talk intelligently about film, which I completely agree with you, is that is a pointing out of expertise, that someone who studies a thing will know more about it than someone who doesn't study a thing. Now, that doesn't mean that someone's opinion on whether or not they like the thing isn't 100% valid. You get to like or not like whatever the fuck you want.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I know more about film than the average person. And so therefore, we have a certain level of expertise that we can talk about it in a more detailed and intelligent manner.
Right. Well, and then but that's where I have to disagree with you, because we don't know what the normal person knows about movie. And there's an inherent...
you and I know more about movies than the average person. That's a fact.
Well, no, I don't think so. And I don't think that should be a thing that we believe or feel. I think we know what we love about movies. We know how to talk intelligently about movies. But we could walk up to an average person and they could wow the shit out of us about what they know about movies, but they've never hosted a podcast. They've never sat down.
But then they're not an average person.
But
Then they're not an average person.
Well, what do you consider to be an average person? A dope? I don't.
No, an average person is someone who has an average amount of knowledge. So they wouldn't wow us. Someone who can wow you someone who could wow you and I with their knowledge of movies is not average.
So by definition, if they come in with an incredible analysis of movies, then you would be like, wow, they're not an average person. Even though they'd be a C-level student, a C-level human being throughout their entire lives, have failed marriages, have no money in their bank account, have like a constant
in terms
issues.
Of their movie knowledge, they are not average.
Well, there you go. But you're saying an average person. Are you saying a person with average movie knowledge? That's a different conversation, because that's a different clarification for me. If you're saying the person with average movie knowledge, yes, I would agree that we know more than they do about movies. However, their analysis or their opinion can still possibly be better about certain movies or about certain things in movies, because we don't see the things that they see.
Totally agree.
That's a human process, right? And so that's what I get at. Of course, I believe that I know more about film than most people, but I always create the space that a person will come in and have a completely different perspective on. I've been so surprised at some of the comments that I've gotten in my reviews for movies or my conversations on issues of movies on my channel, because some people come in and they have this really incredibly intelligent 4 or 5 paragraph breakdown, and I just go, that's amazing. I never looked at it that way, right? And so it's just those kinds of things where you see that people have perspectives and opinions from all different areas of their lives and can bring that to a movie. So therefore, any art is always subjective, because it is people bringing their own stuff to it to give their opinions on it, and so we've seen, and unfortunately, my belief has also led to people going like, well, maybe Rise of Skywalker wasn't that bad, or Spider-Man 3 wasn't that bad, or Green Lantern wasn't that bad. We've seen that over the last few years, the explosion of people defending terrible movies, in my opinion, terrible movies, because there is a validation of whatever your opinion is on a film, you get to write and talk about it. And although I may hate it, I also understand that they have a right to do that,
I feel like you kind of come to my point, which is these terrible movies.
In my opinion, it's like, but they're my opinion that they're terrible. They're not terrible to those people, though.
Yeah, but and this is the split that I think, and maybe this is just a lesser disagreement than it's sounding like, which is that I agree with you that people are subjective. I also agree with you that frequently someone will bring an opinion on something that I never really considered before, and that will change the way I see a certain film. That's totally true. There's a huge range of our subjectives. There have been movies where I just saw them in a bad mood and liked the movie much less. Or you see a movie with a bad audience, and then you see it with a different audience, and you have a different experience. All those things are totally true. My point is that within all of this, there are objective things we can say about film. It's just like there are times where I've gone to a restaurant and eaten a burger and gone, this is a fucking great burger.
Right.
And I went to a different restaurant and ate a burger, and it's like, this burger is average.
Right.
That's not just my taste.
Yeah, but if a person who is just as much of a foodie as you are can go into that burger that you hated and love it, and go into the burger that you loved and hated it, therefore it's subjective.
You're acting as if it's entirely subjective.
Yes, it is.
And it is not entirely subjective.
I think
there are things that we can say.
Yeah.
Like if someone dropped the burger in front of you and the bun fell off and it was kind of sliding to one side, I'm looking at that burger going, man, that burger is not put together objectively as well as the burger that isn't, with all the meat sliding to one side.
Okay.
Like there are craftsmanship, and this is, my basic value system is to believe in hard work, craftsmanship, attention to detail. And those things I can objectively say are frequently better than the stuff that is just thrown together by people who didn't fucking care.
Well, there you go. Frequently better, but not always. And so therefore, it's not an objective thing that exists. If it's frequently better.
You're going into like a, well, nothing means anything argument. What is the value? What have we been doing on the Cine-Files for 9 years, if not talking about objective things we can say about film?
I have never talked about it in an objective way. It's always subjective. It's always my opinion on this movie is this, and my opinion about the cinematography is this. My feelings about the acting is this. My feelings about the direction is this. My feeling about the quality of the film is this. I've always operated from a subjective opinion on the movie. That's always how I've approached it. I've never looked at it as we're an objective movie podcast, because two other people who are just as knowledgeable of film can come in and have the completely opposite opinion that we have about every movie we've covered and lay out multiple examples of why we're wrong in their opinion. So therefore, it is inherently by its foundation subjective. I can look at a piece of art and think it's dog shit. Someone else is just as knowledgeable as I am about art, which is not that much. So an average person can look at a piece of art and be like, it's amazing. An artist can come in and look at it and say it's dog shit and agree with me, but another person who's just as qualified as they are can look at the piece of art and go, it's amazing. So it's always subjective. But to me, I've always believed that. It's just finding that subjective that is reflected by a majority of the populace that ends up creating classics. That ends up creating TV shows that people enjoy. You know, you can say that, but not everyone enjoys Friends. Not everyone likes The Godfather. Not everyone likes Citizen Kane. Not everyone likes even Greg Tolan's cinematography in Citizen Kane. Not everyone likes Bernard Herrmann's music. Like, nothing is subjective, or nothing is objective, because to me, objective has to be 100% fact from top to bottom. And nothing is fact in art. Nothing. It is always about our opinion of it. That is the foundation of art.
Some things are facts, though.
In your
like, for
opinion,
instance,
some things are facts.
No, it's not just no. This isn't just an opinion.
You know how I've not contradicted you and said no to you once? Yeah, you said no to me repeatedly throughout this situation. Go ahead.
That's because there are objective truths.
Right. And I think they're subjective, which is why I accept your opinion and don't say no to you. Go ahead. Yes.
But you did just say no to me. You've been saying no to me this whole time.
No, I haven't. I've said I disagree with you. There's a difference. Go ahead.
I'm not sure what the difference between disagreeing with someone and saying no to them is, but putting that aside.
No one's saying you're wrong. Disagreeing is saying I just don't agree with you. I think there's two different things.
If you have a moment like you think about, Dad, do you want to have a catch?
Yes, in Field of Dreams.
In Field of Dreams.
Right.
Is that I can go through and see all of the things that are set up in the film to make that moment moving.
Right.
Now, you don't have to be moved by it. And you could go like, I don't like baseball movies. I don't like dad movies. I don't think this moment works. I don't like magical realism as it appears. That's totally fine.
Right.
But there is an objective truth where I can say, here are all of the things that the filmmaker did in order to create that emotional moment. It might not work on you, but it's like you look at the architecture of a building and you go like, okay, here's how they designed the basement in order to support the structure so the building doesn't fall down. Right. That is objectively good design. If the building fell down, then it wouldn't have been objectively good design. There's labor that goes into creating a piece of art or creating a movie, creating a performance, creating a shot, creating a score, where you go like, okay, John Williams, all of the leitmotifs that he introduces throughout Jaws, and then how each of those leitmotifs plays in each of the storytelling moments, in the climactic moments, is incredibly complex, difficult to accomplish, and completely works musically. And it's like, you don't have to like Jaws, but I can objectively say that only a master composer—
But you're not objectively saying that.
I am.
No. You're saying it from your opinion because you look at it a certain way and it works for you. Someone else who's just as intelligent and knowledgeable as you could look at it and go, it's maudlin, it's cheesy, it's fishing for things, it's not as complex as you think. It's actually playing on these notes because it knows human beings respond to these notes. John Williams smartly composed this to play out a certain way to try to get a majority.
Wait, he smartly composed it?
Yeah, smartly.
Is that objectively smart?
I don't know. Let me finish.
He wasn't objectively
smartly
smart.
Composed it so that a majority of people would fall for it.
Well, that's what's objective about it. If he smartly composed it,
because he knew here's the things to use, and I know a lot of people's opinion is going to like it. But guess what? Not everyone's going to like it. Therefore, it is not objective.
So if I do a thing and I go, if I do this, 60% of people will like it.
Yes.
But if I do this thing, 78% of people will like it.
Right.
Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Both subjective.
So objective, because we gave a percentage of 60% of people will like it and 78% will be.
Yeah, you're assuming that 68%. You assume that 78% or whatever.
Okay, let's put it this way. Let's say okay, I'm going to make this choice and I think this is going to be way more popular than this other choice and way more moving.
You think, yes.
Yes, and I make both versions. This happens in filmmaking quite a bit.
Yes.
And I do a test screening.
Yes.
And in the test, so for instance, in Jaws, there's the moment where the head pops out of the boat, where they find the guy.
Yes.
And they first did it and they did the first screening. Everyone went nuts for the movie. And the producers go up to Spielberg and they say, this is amazing. And Spielberg's like, no, we got one scream we didn't get. And so he goes and reshoots the head coming out of the thing because he knows if the head turns this way, he's going to get a bigger screen.
Right.
And they reshoot it, they put it in, and it does get a bigger screen.
Right.
Do you think nothing objective happened here?
No. His opinion was this will get a bigger screen.
And he was right.
Right. So it's his opinion, though.
Yes, but he was right.
It's a subjective thing.
Of course it's an opinion. Yes, art is, we're making our choices, but if the choice works and way more people scream way louder, there was no scream in the first time they showed it, and now there's a huge scream, well, then the movie has become objectively better.
No, the movie
even if
has
people
become
don't like it.
subjectively better because 70% of the people liked it, but 30% didn't. Therefore, it is not objective.
But the difference between if we went from 50% liked it to 70% liked it, the 30 versus the 70, that's still people's subjective reaction to the film.
Yes.
But the going from 50% to 70% is an objective improvement based on an improvement in the film.
No, it's a subjective improvement because you thought, okay, I'm going to be able to do this and this is my opinion and I will do this. And it worked. But 30 years from now, 70% of the people could hate it and 30% of the people like it. Like Song of the South. I'm sure that was a good fucking idea for 80% of the people there from Disney. And now 40 years later, 50, 60, whatever long years later, clearly it's not. So just because it is, if anything can be changed, it is not objective. And therefore an opinion, which is the feeling about the moment you're talking about, can be changed at any time, depending on the people who are watching it. There's a lot of people who don't like Jaws now. They're starting to be louder and louder about people who don't like Jaws or feel it's a bit manipulative or heavy-handed. Like those are those things that exist in the world of criticism now. Certain films that were certainly objectively amazing back in the 1920s or 1930s, 100 years from now, are not going to be the same. Are not going to be seen in the same boat. So what happened? What happened to that objective truth from the 1920s when we get to 2020s?
Well, if the world changes, then the way things fit into the world change. But that doesn't mean those objective truths don't exist. It's not the fact that people are subjective or people can have different opinions or opinions can change about things or our feelings about things can change. For instance, like I'll go to the food one. There are times I've gone to a new restaurant, tried a new dish and gone, this is the greatest fucking thing I've ever had. By the fifth time I've had that dish, the dish hasn't changed, but I'm no longer having the same reaction because I've had it many times. So my subjective experience certainly can change.
Yes.
But the qualities of the dish didn't change. The things that made the dish a good dish are still there. It's just I'm responding to it differently. Just as like we can have very different opinions. We can have very different opinions on Huckleberry Finn, a book that at its time was groundbreaking in terms of its treatment of race.
Right.
And we can look at it today, 100 plus years later, and go, well, this is pretty retrograde at this point. But the qualities that existed within the book, they're still there. The hard work, the effort, the detail, the joke, the structure, all that stuff is still there. We might not like it as much.
This is what you hold on to, and this is where we're never going to agree, no matter how long this short goes, is that you think hard work should be rewarded. You think technical expertise should have some stroke. And I don't think that.
I think technical expertise matters. It's not that I think that it should be rewarded.
Throughout the 25 minutes, you've brought it up consistently that, well, people work hard to do this. People know how to do. People study hard, and then therefore, And you just said earlier, I believe my life ethos is hard work and expertise and attention to detail. That makes a thing better, but that's not always true, and therefore, it's all a matter of how you look at a situation and who walks up to do what. And who's got a natural ability to do things versus someone who's learned how to do it. This is a Salieri versus Amadeus conversation. Would you say that Amadeus was objectively a great composer or was Salieri the great composer? Because Salieri's the one who had attention to detail, worked hard, studied, did all the things he was supposed to do.
Both had attention to detail and worked extremely hard.
What's that?
Both had attention to detail and worked extremely hard.
Well, when you watch the movie, that isn't what's conveyed in the film, right? It's just him coming up with it and on the fly and naturally being able to do it. He's a gifted prodigy. So if a gifted prodigy can do everything you've studied decades to do, then is that person just as qualified and talented as you are?
Totally.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so someone who
hard work, attention to detail, and all that, it doesn't really matter if someone is objectively talented or subjectively talented.
Well, I still think that talent is only gets you so far, and we've known many, many talented people who didn't succeed that much because they didn't do the work. But that being said, no, of course, talent matters a huge amount. Like if there are people, there are things that I spent a whole long time working to figure out how to do that I saw people sweep in and do it better than me almost right away. But hear what I said. I said they did that better than me. That thing they did is, and so I can, someone who's practiced the thing, look at the thing, and go, fuck, that guy's good,
right?
You know, and again, I go to, you know, like if you look at a bunch of musicians and you go, man, all of these great musicians who I respect say this guy is the best.
Yeah.
Well, that to me, yes, we can say I put a lot more value on who the great talented people say is great than I do on the average person.
But yeah, and I think there's where we're having a disconnect because I don't think skill is objective. I think the end
of course
result,
skill is objective.
I don't think skill is subjective. I think the result is the objective. That's what I'm talking about.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's all I'm talking about. Art is subjective. All art is subjective. Whether you want to say that there was a skilled person who made it is irrelevant to me because art is subjective. And therefore, does it work or does it not? Plenty of unskilled people have created incredible art. Blair Witch Project. Plenty of non-skilled people have created terrible art. Plenty of skilled people have created a terrible art. 1941, New York, New York. Plenty of unskilled directors have created incredible art. So this idea that it is all, to me, every product of art is subjective. Therefore, it is not objective. Now, the skill of these people, you could argue is objective. It is, that I can give you, but I'm not going to give you the end result being objective because I think that's not true at all.
I think
so. That's where the difference is. I think the skill. I agree with you. The end result is what I've always been arguing.
I think part of it is where we slice it, and I agree with you. Like we're closer than this discussion would lead us to believe.
Yes.
But like to me, it is when you say nothing is objective. I'm like, wait, hold on. There's some things we can say. Right. It's not just the skill. We can look at an individual shot, an individual music cue, and go into detail about why this is working so great. But that doesn't mean that you have to like the movie. Right. It doesn't have to work for you as an individual. That's the subjective part.
But the subjective part is you saying it working so great. That's the subjective part. That's where we have the disconnect in the difference of our opinion. You think it's working so great. That's a subjective opinion. You could argue the skill of how skilled they are as people. That's objective for the most part, I think. But subjective result of their skill. That's what I think. There's no objectivity in the result of art, and whether it's a moment, a music cue, or a massive tableau of great cinematography from someone like Roger Deakins. Because there are plenty of people who watch a Roger Deakins movie and are bored out of their fucking minds.
But you can't say it's poorly filmed.
I think people could say that because that's their opinion of it. Now, what you can say objectively is that Roger Deakins is a phenomenal cinematographer. But the end result is always up to opinion. Always.
So I believe that this is as good a place as any to end a discussion, which obviously we are not going to come to the end of ever. But we would love to hear, what do you think about objectivity and subjectivity in art? This is a really big question, and I think it's really important to the kind of analysis we're doing on the Cine-Files. And of course, we couldn't do that analysis without all of our supporters on patreon.com/the Cine-Files, as well as Apple Podcasts. So thank you to all of you for your support. We could not make the show without you. And for my partner, John Rocha, I am objectively Steve Morris. And we'll see you on another Cine-Files short. Hello and welcome to another edition of Cine-Files Shorts. I am Steve Morris, here with my trusty partner, Jonathan Rocha.
Hello, Jonathan. Yes, thank you. Esquire, thank you.
Jonathan Rocha, Esquire. And Jonathan, we were just discussing The Last of Us in our previous Cine-Files short. And at the end of the conversation, we were talking about how difficult it is to do a series based on a video game when there are tons of rabid, intense fans of that video game out in social media who will be watching every single thing and ready to criticize it.
Yeah.
And here is the thought that I had that I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
When I decided back in my 20s, or even back in my teens when I started directing theater, and then back in my 20s where I said, I want to write and direct movies, I knew there were all sorts of challenges ahead in terms of budgets and schedules and working with actors and picking camera angles and editing. And I knew all of it was going to be hard. And I was still like, I'm into this. I'm ready to take on those challenges. It might kick the shit out of me. I might fail, but I want to do it.
Yeah.
Today, in today's world, you have to deal with, we're right in the middle of James Gunn's Superman's about to come out.
Yeah.
And he has been subjected to years of debates over a movie that nobody has seen of whether or not he's making the right choices. It is the world of social media and criticism that anyone doing pop culture stuff has to wade into. And looking at that, if that is now part of the job description, it's not you're just hired to get the money to make the movie and try to make a good movie and hopefully the movie will sell. I'm not into this. I would never, ever want any of these jobs because just the shit show of attacks from every direction that you have to navigate. And in my opinion, it's not possible to navigate this. So that's what I wanted to talk about. What do you think about the job of the director or the producer or the actor in this world, including all of this other shit from social media?
Well, I think you have to know what you're signing up for, right? And I think we now have evidence. If you're getting into the filmmaking business and you're going to play innocent about how ruthless social media is or how ruthless fans are, how sometimes they can be racist or sexist or really offensive and vitriolic and toxic in their commentary. And that's the online. I think a majority of people are not that way. It's just this loud minority of people who are on social media who do that. You're I don't believe you. Do you know what I'm saying? Or you're purposely shielding yourself from it. It is, you have to be aware of it now, and it is part of the game. And look, this is the way it is. You want success, you're going to have to deal with people who are constantly trying to tear you down in your success, because the majority of the time it's from jealousy. And some of the other stuff is from a place of I wouldn't do it that way. I would do it this way, because they want to feel empowered that their opinion is somehow reflected. And some people have legitimate criticism and legitimate concerns about it, but this is the world. And it's not just in entertainment though, Steve, it's everywhere now, right? Everywhere. Sports, our politics, business leaders, everybody has an opinion now and social media. So it's available. But with James Gunn is a unique situation because James has participated in social media in the past, right? And so he can't come in here and be like, well, I have no idea why this is so shocking and blah. No, you were making fun of shit in the past 10, 20 years ago on social media, got in trouble for it, almost got removed from, you did get removed from Guardians, then came back and finished it. But so he's been one of the people who has issued toxic shit on social media in the past. So he can't play innocent about this. But I do think this, and the thing that's perplexing to me is he's running a studio, yet he is on social media a lot. And you don't see Feige on social media. You don't see a lot of the Marvel directors weighing in on social media. So in a way, he's kind of courting this a little bit more than a typical director would. So your question to me is, what do I think about it? I think it's madness. I think it's insane. But you're not changing it, and I think it's just the reality of the business. So if you want to be in this business, this is the game, and not everyone has the skin strong enough to deal with it.
It's funny. Yes, this is the reality of the world we live in. I will complain about it. I will say I'm not happy about it.
I meant to royal you, not you. I meant to
no. I know. I understand what you're saying. I'm saying I'm still going to continue to complain about it. And I think one of the points, and I don't know, I'm not saying this is in James Gunn's thinking, but there is an argument that has shown, and I think there is substantial evidence of this, that to some degree, all publicity is good publicity. And that there are people who say things that should, in my brain, be deal breakers, and yet they go more popular. That just drawing attention to the dumpster fire, just in some ways can work out for people. I don't think it works out in general for society. And I think, we'll see what happens with Superman movie. But like what's so frustrating to me, because I've been in a casting room, I've been in a writer's room, I've had these conversations, and I know that the decisions that are made are nuanced and difficult. And that while there might be external factors that are taken into consideration in those decisions, is what happens in social media. They only hear about the external factors. So they see a picture of the person who was cast. Right. They weren't in the casting session. They haven't read the script. They haven't seen the other people that were potential for it. They didn't see the great audition and the great screen test. They only see the picture. And then they go, this person doesn't look like what I think that person should look like. Right. We were just talking in The Last of Us, and you said that Abby doesn't look like what Abby looks like in the game.
People said that.
People say that.
I didn't ever play the game, so I had
not putting that on you, but that's people's reaction. Just as people couldn't stand the idea of an extremely tall Hugh Jackman playing the obviously short Wolverine. Right. Like, what is the most central physical characteristic of Wolverine is that he's short.
Right.
And yet Hugh Jackman obviously embodies that character, despite the fact that he doesn't look like him in that area. Embodies that character so perfectly that we go, oh, okay, I'm cool with this. And this happens all the time. Is that, yes, and this is why it bothers me, our obsession with physical appearance and identity as the primary thing to make casting on. It is a thing to make casting on. Yeah. But casting is so, actors are so nuanced and complicated. And when someone reads something for a part, you go, fuck, that shit works. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. You take your shot. And it's like, and this is, but having a world of people question choices before they see whether the choices are working is so counterproductive. And yes, you're right. Sports, politics, economics, all these decisions. And this is one that I'll just say to you, just because I want to put it out here, and I'm going to keep putting it out here forever, which is that humans are terrible at fucking predictions. We're awful. And so anytime someone says inflation is going to go up, inflation is going to go down, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to lead, we never know. And we rarely go back and check. So all the people that are on Twitter saying, so-and-so actor should never have been cast as blank, we never go back and say, hey, you know what? That guy was great. So maybe your tweet should be degraded from now on because obviously your predictions are terrible. You know what I mean? That we never go back and look. It's just now you get to be outraged about the next thing. And now you get to be outraged about the next thing. And we never check on how good a predictor you were in the first place,
Yeah, no, it's very true. We never go back. There are videos of people. Like today I was watching one of these sites on X put up the 5-minute 41-second compilation of LeBron James and the Cavaliers coming back down 3-1 in the finals against the Golden State Warriors. And they found old tweets of people who were doubting after every game that Cleveland was going to win, right? But they never put up the tweets of these people saying, I was wrong. LeBron did it. 41 points on Draymond Green. There was none of that because most people don't go back and retweet themselves and say, you know what, I'm sorry to blah, blah, blah. I clearly was wrong. All power to you. Rarely, because people tweet from a place of anger in that moment, and they tweet it out or frustration or thinking or snarkiness or thinking they're being smarter than everybody. And and by the way, it's not just regular on the ground folk people. It is also celebrities. It is also big podcast hosts. They post all kinds of shit, and they never quote tweet their bad or their incorrect post and go, I was clearly wrong. That almost never happens because it's all about protecting the brand of never apologizing. This is the new thing. This is the thing that's been happening over the last few years with all our social media interaction is people not being able to apologize or being shamed if they do apologize. And it's just an interesting development, all this. So you can't even have a healthy debate because there's always some nefarious intention behind it.
Well, and there's this weird information loop that happens because it's not just that a studio or a politician or a company is putting out information. It's that then they are monitoring the response to the information they put out. And then they are adjusting the thing that they did based on the response to the information that they put out.
Yeah.
And those things are not actually so and the one that bugs me the most is the constant discussion of polls and then the predictions that follow. So they go, okay, so and so is up 50. It's, you know, we're looking at a poll where it says it's 51-49 with a 4-point uncertainty, which means we know nothing. That's what that poll actually means. And so first of all, they don't fucking say that. They don't say clearly we don't know anything. And then they'll say, well, who is going to win based on what you see? And then people make all these predictions. Oh, I see this person doing this and I see this person doing this. And or they'll say so-and-so's statement about this thing led this poll to go down. And then the politicians hear the predictions and see the polls, which were fucking meaningless. And then they make adjustments to their policies based on the response they saw on Twitter. And the same thing happens with movie studios. So now you're scrambling to adjust to opinions that mean nothing for people that haven't seen the thing that hasn't happened yet. You know, this is not a good way to make a meal.
I know. And quite a lot of people do it. Quite a lot of people do it and find success in doing it. Other people don't. But like there is a stoking of the fire in all of that, you know? And so, yeah, I would not. I mean, I would take a role if I was ever lucky enough to audition for a Marvel movie or DC movie and get one of the main roles. I mean, obviously I would jump at the chance and the opportunity, but man, you have to really be aware that you are opening yourself up to all kinds of ridicule and criticism. And the irony is that a majority of the people who make I would say 99.9% of the people who make these horrific, post these horrific posts and say these horrific things could not handle being a public figure at that level, could not handle the criticism, could not handle the constant, every time opening up social media and seeing like thousands upon thousands of negative comments about you and what you're trying to do, right? And I think there's something that a lot of people who comment on social media forget is to give these people grace to try to see what they can do. Like you said with Abby, I didn't play the video game. So for me, I'm like, yeah, she doesn't look like her from what I see from the pictures, but I know that she's a damn good actress, so let's see what she's got, right? And the same thing with Bella Ramsey. When she was cast as Ellie, yeah, she doesn't look like the Ellie from the game, but Bella Ramsey is a damn good actress coming out of Game of Thrones, so let's see what she's got. So I'm very much more open to see what people can do with it. I'm not as attached to it as I see some other people are, you know, and so who knows? Maybe there's something like Liverpool is something I love, you know, Steve, to the core of my bones. If someone was cast who didn't look quite like the person, maybe I might have a bit of issues with it and be like, okay, but I feel that I'd still be like open to see what the interpretation is like. But I think a lot of people just want something to be upset about. I think we're an unhappy world, no matter what you see in these ads and these commercials and whatever. And I think we're an unhappy world because a majority of the people in the world are unsatisfied, like didn't achieve the thing they wanted to achieve, or their life didn't turn out the way they thought it was going to turn out, or their jobs or their personal lives, relationships, children, what have you. And so social media is tapped into that. And that's what drives YouTube and social media is this anger. And you know, it comes out in these moments like, oh, you're messing with my childhood. You know, this isn't not my Batman, not my Superman, not my Wonder Woman, not my Flash or Marvel or Iron, whatever you want to say. And so it becomes all of that. And so people feel an empowerment in going after them with this vitriol because they're never going to be found out. Their addresses, their names, and so it's all of that that's just mixed into the game. And I feel bad because I participate in it and I hate myself whenever I catch myself going too far and reacting to some people's goading tweets. You know, and so it's just something we're always navigating, you know. We've gotten our share of negative comments, for God's sake.
Oh yeah. Well, and we live in we live connected to the ultimate perpetual outrage machine.
Yes.
You know, like, and it's an outrage machine. It's so funny. Like I remember talking about this when we did, what the fuck is it called? The Star Trek episode where they're trapped on the ship with the Klingons and there's the alien who's making them angry at each other. And it is called, fuck. All right. Because I won't say it. I'm going to remember it as soon as we stop talking. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
So So the whole point of these social media systems is they make money off of your attention. And they've
Yes.
learned the easiest way to get your attention is outrage. And so,
Yeah.
and you get right. And just as you say, it's like you feel a little helpless and out of control in your life. And
Yeah.
you see a thing that you love and you see someone else say something ridiculous or offensive. And so you attack.
Yeah.
And then they attack you. And now we're just sending money to the great outrage machine. It's like
Yeah.
Outrage Inc., you know? And this is like, I was scrolling along on Instagram or something,
Mhm.
and I saw, you know how you see like something weird and you go like, what was that? Was that a fight? Are those people fighting?
Right.
And I see like, you know, it's a fight that started. I have no context. I don't know who started the fight. I don't know why the fight was started. I don't know anything about it. All I can tell is there's like a black guy and a white guy, and they get in a fight.
Right.
And then I made the horrible fucking mistake of looking at the comments. And I look at the comments, and every single person is framing this as racial. And there's white racist saying horrible things, and there's people, and it's like, I don't know that the fight was racial because I don't see what happened at the beginning. I don't see what happened at the end. I have zero context, but I can fucking see that everybody frames that as a battle between the races and brings in all of their opinions about what each race is or isn't. And after, I don't know, 45 seconds of looking at this, I had to like put the barrier down in my brain and like, stop. You can't look at this. This is fucking horrible. It's making you feel sick to your stomach about humanity, and it's terrible. But that's what this does, you know? Because of course, I you know me, I kind of want to step in and say, "Hey, fellas, let's maybe we could all get along." Like that's going to go really, really well. And then I'm in the midst of the thing, you know?
And then you might take it personal, and then you might go back, and then you got sucked into becoming one of the voices going at each other. Yeah, exactly. It's the horrible truth of it all. It reminds me of that episode Day of the Dove from the original.
I fucking hate you. I fucking hate you right now. So not only now I have to leave in the thing where I forgot what the fucking name of the episode is. So, but now I can explain, you bastard. Yeah, so we did Day of the Dove on Enterprise incidents, and the metaphor I was making was that the alien who gets power from making the Klingons and the humans angry is like social media and our media in general that 100%. Feeds off our outrage. And people got so mad at me when they were furious. People on the left, I said, we need to find ways to get past this thing and stop feeding the machine that makes us angry, which
you mean
we actually,
in the comments section of this episode of Star Trek of Enterprise.
I was attacked. Well, because I said, look, we're in a situation where we're at each other's throats, and there's a major corporations that are getting richer from keeping us angry and afraid and hating each other. And we have to, just as Kirk had to go over to the Klingon commander and find a way to make peace and laugh at the alien, we have to find a way to stop feeding the fucking machine that lives off making us angry. And I had so many people write, you want, this is mostly from the left, saying, you want us to make friends with Trump and MAGA and all those, these evil people? And I'm like, Kirk had to make friends with the Klingons who tortured and murdered people on planets all across, it's like, you don't have to, it's not, there's no struggle with making peace with nice people who you love. The struggle is to figure out how can we stop fighting with people that we strongly disagree with. That is where the struggle is.
I agree. But didn't the Klingon also participate in the farce of like them making peace about it in front of the guy, or no?
Yeah, they slapped each other on the back and laughed at 100%. It, of course. Well, this is it absolutely takes two. It takes Snyder Bros and James Gunn people saying, hey, let's wait and see the movie.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. 100%. Yeah, I think that's the thing is there's legitimate desire to make peace with people who legitimately want to make peace. There has to be an understanding on both sides. If you want to sue for peace, the other side must also want legitimate peace. And so must legitimately want peace. And I think that's where I think sometimes people just make an assumption that the other side does not want peace. They want to keep the battle going.
And that is, and I think sometimes, often, and particularly there are things going on in Los Angeles right now where I think that assumption is true.
Yes.
Is that there are certainly, there are people who are on the side of the outrage machine.
Yeah.
Who want, it's just what you said. They want
make
the
money
conflict. Yeah. Well, and get elected from it. Like fear and anger gets people elected.
Yeah,
It's not
and
good for us,
it's
but
true.
it works.
Yeah, but look at how much it's right. It's corroded the fandom in a lot of
Yeah.
ways because people are now just immediately handed their talking points by these people that they follow and they watch on YouTube, and they go, "I'm outraged. That person who I follow and trust and believe said this about this Superman film. I now am in the same camp. They've convinced me." Rather than being like, "Okay, I see where they're coming from. I may agree with some of it. Let's see what the film is like and where I'm at mentally." And so that's where it becomes troublesome is how much of it is authentic and how much of it has been handed to you as a fan. And look, we all can be subject to this. Like I read sports stuff all the time. How much am I being shaped by the columnists who are presenting the issue in a certain way versus me looking at it objectively and trying to find out where I have a subjective opinion about it all. So it's just every facet of even reading political stuff, reading even stuff as simple as books. You would think books would be untouchable, but there are toxicity within book cultures as well. There's nothing humans are involved in that is a fandom that is a fandom, I guess, that doesn't have toxicity trailing just a step behind. Always.
Well, and I think it's like to me, there are things that you can read or see, and you can go, man, 70% of that I thought was amazing, and I fucking hated this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was a good experience. And it's like you got a whole bunch of stuff out of it. Yeah, you didn't like all of it, but you ended up with more than you had when you started. And what I think frequently people do is they go, I found one thing I hate, therefore the whole thing, it's the bad apple has ruined the whole barrel. Like then I should just throw it out. And it's like I think so much of our experience, there's so many books that I've read or things that where I went, man, I that was a fucking slog. I did not enjoy that.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did it because I got this thing that I would never have had if I hadn't done it some other way.
Right.
Like I think part of this, maybe this comes from me listening to books at high speed so I can get through more quickly. Like if I spent 6 months reading that book, I probably would not have thought it was worth it. So like that's part of it. I had a story I was going to tell. Oh, I remember what it was. I think I've told this. I'm almost certain I've told this story before on the podcast at some point. But we all went to a play, and I'm pretty sure you were there. That was a friend was in a new play that was a musical about a very heavy, serious topic. And we're with a group. It was Ginny Jones, and it was a musical about homelessness and like runaway kids.
Yeah, I probably blocked that out from my mind, but I probably was there. Yes.
So we went to this play, and it was bold. It was an aggressive young play about a heavy issue. Right. And there were things in it where there were very talented people working really hard, and there were things in it where I was like, "Boy, does this not work at all?" but I also admired the guts to go after a heavy issue and make this thing, and it's all independent. And I remember that we walked out, and we're with 20 people standing around, and I realized because there's the moment when you're with a group of friends and you came out of the movie or the play, and everyone's going to look at each other and go, "So what did you think?" Yeah. And I realized I was walking out. If someone asked me, "So what did I think?" I actually didn't know what I thought. Yeah. I was really mixed between like the things that just completely didn't work and the boldness and the talent and everything behind it. And I realized that my mind was open and ready to be filled by whichever of our friends made the first comment. And if the first comment was negative, I would probably perceive the play more negatively. That would frame all these emotions. Yeah. And if the first because we also, there's a social aspect. We want to be with the group that is saying the right thing. That's why like whether it's Snyder or whatever, people glom onto, I'm on this team. And that's the thing too, is that we think that our opinions about things are just, I have thought this thought about this thing, when frequently they're actually filled up by who we're with and how other people are experiencing things. And to me, that's all a reason to give everything more grace. That, it's funny. I'm now taking a totally opposite opinion of one of our contentious shirts recently. I still believe there are things about film and art that can be objective, but I also think that humans are very, very, very subjective. Yeah. And need to be aware of our own subjectivity.
Yeah. Agreed.
So that was our impromptu short about really the other job of people moving into this industry now, which is that it's not just the job of acting in the part or making the film or writing the script or running a studio head. It is your job is now to manage a social media profile that will inevitably become toxic.
Yeah.
You know, that's so thank you, John, for being willing to discuss this.
Yeah,
Thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon as well as Apple Podcasts. We could not make the Cine-Files without you. And for my partner, John Rocha, I am Steve Morris, and we will see you on another Cine-Files short. Hello and welcome to another edition of Cine-Files Shorts. I am Steve Morris with my partner, John Rocha.
Hello, everyone. This was a short that we are excited to jump into. I can't wait. When Steve pitched it to me from one of our fans, I was like, yeah, we got to talk about this.
Well, obviously, we just had some pretty intense, and I'm very happy with our discussion of Crimson Tide. I think you and I went on a long journey together.
Yes.
And I think the results are really cool.
Can I read you something from our friend, Shannon McClung?
Oh.
Did he text you this at all?
He did text me and said that he loved the shows, but
he
I
said
don't know
these Crimson Tide episodes may legitimately be the best work you and Steve had done on your show.
Wow.
For all we struggled over putting those episodes together, to have a longtime listener and friend of ours send that compliment through, and he rarely sends us stuff. When he does, he really means it. So
yeah,
the fact that he sent that, I think after we had such a little bit of a difficult time putting those episodes together and navigating that stuff together, I thought was a nice kind of feeling like we did get it done. We got it done right, and that was nice to hear.
Well, I agree. It's a lovely comment from Shannon, and what I think is that we did exactly what Hunter and Ramsey didn't do, which is we had some conflicts, and then we sat down as a team together trying to work out what was the best thing for the show, which actually is a perfect connection to the suggestion from Aaron Klister, who writes, I've owned Crimson Tide for about 18 months now, and when I saw a notification of you guys exploring it, I thought, well, now I know what I'm watching next. He says that he loves the film, loves Tony Scott, and then he says, when the conflict of Denzel and Hackman's characters begin with the movie's central situation, I could not help but think of Steve Rogers and Tony Stark in Civil War, with the what is the right thing to do versus what are we ordered to do. He wants us to talk about the connection between Hackman's character and Denzel's character with Tony and Steve in Civil War. And I also want to read what he writes at the end of this.
Okay.
He says, I keep you guys in my thoughts and prayers all the time. To John, I have three voices in my head when I am lacking in my discipline. One is my father, another is my old drill instructor, and the third is you.
Oh my God, really? Oh, well, thank you.
There you go.
Please follow up and let me know what I'm saying to you in those moments.
You live in their head. So we know that we're going to get to Captain America Civil War pretty soon in the future of the Cine-Files. I think it's next year that we're going to do it. But this is an important discussion that has come up many, many times, is the following orders versus doing what you think is right. So Ramsey and Hunter, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. John, what do you think?
I think it's an interesting comparison, right? Especially because of the way we both approached Crimson Tide. We both thought the person that we looked at was right in their actions, right? Like you were on the side of Ramsey and offered a very good and compelling case on why Ramsey was correct or right, or why he felt he was right to do the things.
I was not on Ramsey's side.
Right,
I was merely,
exactly.
yes. I'm on Hunter's side.
You found logic in what Ramsey was doing. And so, so I think that's, and other people who might not have liked what Hunter was doing, I found logic in what Hunter was doing, right? Because there probably are people who don't like what Hunter did throughout the movie, who are much more of like sticklers to the rules and things of that nature. So I think it's a good comparison because the Iron Man versus Captain America thing is such a good part. It's something that's understood, But I think it still doesn't get enough credit for why a lot of those films work, why the running storyline of Thanos is great, but the conflict between Tony and Steve, from almost the opening time they meet each other, I think is a really important narrative to follow throughout those series of films, not just in the Avengers films, but in other films as well when they come toe to toe or when their philosophies get talked about or they get referenced. It's a really interesting situation. And so I lean more, ironically, in this situation, I lean more towards Tony. And I think Tony was more right. I think Steve did certain things that were convenient for Steve Rogers, much like America does sometimes, and he represents America. And so for me, I thought Tony's got the right issues to have with Captain America. But Tony also indulges in his fear and paranoia too much, which causes the birth of Ultron, which we talked about in our watch along, but does lead to Vision eventually. So there are certain things, and in the end, he makes the ultimate sacrifice. Tony sacrifices his life. Steve takes back what he had lost, which was his life with Peggy. So it's an interesting thing to look at both of these guys because they have very strong points of views, and especially when you get to the Civil War and the Sokovia Accords, should the government register heroes? Should they not register heroes? It's a fascinating discussion to have because both sides have their points.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting discussion. I think for me, the way I look at it, I think honestly, I know this is going to sound weird to say,
Yeah,
the Crimson Tide situation is so much simpler than the Civil War situation because
you say it's simpler, but like it's simpler in the
not
sense
easy.
that, I was going to say it's nuclear war, and I don't know.
I see. This is one of the language mistakes I think people make all the time, which is confusing simple and easy.
Fair point.
Quitting smoking is simple. You just stop smoking. That was all you have to do.
Right.
It's super, but it's not easy. There's all sorts of so I think in the case of Crimson Tide, it's like we know exactly what we don't know. We don't know what this second message said. If we knew what the second message said, there'd be no conflict between the two of them. And then it's about process. It's do we follow these orders that are in hand or do we do these other things? And then that very simple conflict erupts into an extremely tense, exciting thing.
Yeah.
Tony and Steve is not simple at all.
No.
So because first of all, you start off what's the basic knock on Tony when we get into Avengers is that Steve is the guy who follows orders, who's part of the establishment. Tony is anti-establishment, won't follow orders, is only interested in what he wants in his perspective, and that's the conflict.
Right.
So then when we get to Civil War and they flip sides, so that Tony is now on the side of the establishment and Steve, the soldier, is anti-establishment, and Tony is sacrificing sort of his personal desires to the collective, and Steve is using his personal feelings about Bucky to go against it. And so and the other thing too is, again, not easy, but the possibilities of what can happen in Crimson Tide are simple. We're either going to launch the missiles or we're not going to launch the missiles, and the bad guys are either going to launch the missiles or not. Those are that's the whole thing. Civil War, it's like, well, what is the United Nations going to do? And what is Wakanda going to do? And what are these bad? It's like, we have no way of predicting what the results of everything that's going on. It's a way, way more fraught and complicated situation.
Yeah. It is something you discover as you get older. The rebels become the establishment, and the establishment becomes the rebels. And it's a constant changing of the guard throughout history, right? And whoever gets into power automatically becomes the establishment. And so with Tony is rebellious until he can be in control. And once he's in control, he doesn't like to be questioned. But he had no problem questioning others who were in control. And a lot of rebels or rebellions are built from that place. There is this desire, I know, or we know what's better for our society. The people in charge are abusing their power. They don't understand. They don't get it. We have to remove them. Now, I'm not saying there's not legitimate reasons for that and whatever. I'm just saying that's the basic overall principle. And then once they get into power, they really understand what the requirements and responsibilities of all of that was and how many eggs you actually have to break to make an omelet just so everyone can, or as many people as possible can eat. And then all of a sudden you become the establishment and people come out. So that's the thing that is fascinating about their journeys, right? Because Steve is only becomes a rebel once he finally is disillusioned by Shield and what they're doing, and then the government wanting to register everybody, and he feels like that's not right. That's not the right thing to do. And then Tony is rebellious against all this kind of stuff because he doesn't like the military Yahoo of it all. But then he goes even beyond the military in that he wants to surveil the entire planet.
Right.
And that is establishment and authoritarianism to the nth degree. So that's what makes both of them so correlative to Ramsey and Hunter. There are holes in each of those guys' logic on the ship, on Ramsey on the boat rather, for Ramsey and Hunter. There are holes in their logic, and they're conveniently leaning into one direction or the other because it's who they are. I guarantee you, Hunter 20 years from now has a young Hunter lieutenant who might question him on the boat. And I guarantee you Hunter won't be like, well, let me take that under advisement. That makes a lot of sense. Let's discuss it. No, Hunter will be upset about it. And then it'll be a back and forth and a battle of wills. It's the circle, right, Steve? I mean, that's my opinion. It's the circle constantly.
It's funny. I probably put it, I put it a different way, but I think the result ends up being kind of the same, which is that Steve Rogers is unbelievably ethical. He's had his head entirely set on straight. He's honorable in every way. That's how we meet him.
Right.
You know, like that's what. And so when he's in any kind of a conflict with the establishment, we're Team Steve in the setup because Steve Rogers, it is just accepted. This is a good person, you know?
Yeah.
And the problem is, see, the way I look at it is what I'm always afraid of is cognitive dissonance, which is that I have a certain moral code, but I don't apply that code equally to other people and to myself. And so Steve Rogers is a person who has always known what the right thing to do is. And the problem with that is when Bucky becomes involved, he's like, well, I have to save my friend Bucky. That's the right thing. But is that the right thing?
Yeah.
And so he doesn't have the skills to question himself.
Yeah.
And this is the big thing. You know, I mean, going back to, I remember when we talked about Touch of Evil, a movie I definitely someday want to do again, is that the subject of the famous John Adams quote is, you know, we live in a country of laws, not men. Is the idea is we can't trust any individual to always do the right thing. That is why we must always have laws in place, because even the best meaning individual like Steve Rogers can make mistakes. It's like, I don't so much go, you know, I believe that there are things that armies and police departments and governments and all sorts of things do wrong because of biases and things like that. And, you know, this is something we've had, this is central to our discussion about Crimson Tide, is how much I tend to believe that people exist within their worldview, not necessarily doing things because they think they're evil, but because that's what their worldview tells them to do, which is why I want limitations on power. I want limitations on the police. I want limitations on the army. I want limitations on any organization that has, I don't ever want to rest too much power in any individual, which is why I'm Team Tony in this particular case, despite the fact that I don't trust Tony Stark at all. He created Ultron. He wants to, as you say, survey the whole world. I don't feel good about that, but I also don't feel good about these really powerful creatures like the Hulk not having anyone to restrain them. Like we need, because power corrupts. Even Steve Rogers, the most honorable person in the world, Bucky is a fucking serial killer. He's an assassin who's, he's also a victim. That's totally true. But he absolutely needs to be brought into justice. That's the only reasonable way to do it, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It's Civil War is a frustrating thing for me because it's so obvious that Steve is violating all his principles and all the things that he takes a stand on in order to protect his friend. And that leads to another division, right? Some people think it's okay to break the rules to protect family and friends, yet they're out here screaming about other people who break the rules, right? But maybe those people are breaking the rules for their family and friends, or maybe their friends work for these conglomerates or companies or lobbying company groups, and they're doing what they want to do, what they think is best for their friends and family, right? So it's all a matter of whatever your perception of the situation is. I don't think Steve always does the right thing. I think Steve thinks he always does the right
Exactly.
thing. And
Yeah.
we give him the credit because we saw the scrawny kid who jumped on the fake bomb in Basic, and Tommy Lee Jones was like, oh, I like that. I like that. And so there's, I can do this all that. We relate to that because most of us are vulnerable to society. And I know a lot of us want to puff out our chests and think we're strong. It's not true. Majority of us are not in this society. No matter how strong we think we are, we can be brought to our knees. And so
Yeah.
when you see Cap go through the changes that, or Steve rather, go through the changes he goes through to become Captain America, we relate to that. We connect with that. His indignation with S.H.I.E.L.D., his judgment of S.H.I.E.L.D. starts to border on sanctimony at times. And then when he violates what he's just been yelling at Nick Fury about a few movies ago or a movie ago, in order to protect Bucky because Bucky's been mind controlled, then you're in essence having a sliding scale of morality and a sliding scale of ethics and principles. And I don't think you should violate any of them to help a friend or a family member. If you really believe in a principle and that person has violated the principle, then they have to pay the price for that principle, right? That's kind of how I look at it. But I know a lot of people would be willing to hide their friends or family members from crimes or from getting caught or whatever. And so it's a personal choice. And I think I wonder what Tony would have done if Pepper had been mind controlled. Let's say in Iron Man 3 with that extremist, what if she is being mind controlled by I forget what the character's name is who comes up with the extremist in the third one. But what if she had been mind controlled to kill by him? What would Tony have done if Steve was assigned to go get her? Right? That's the question. Would Tony have been just as vigilant to find out if say Pepper had killed, gone back in time, let's say, and killed Peggy?
Yeah.
Would Tony have been okay with Steve arresting her or fighting her or turning her into the authorities? My guess is no. And so, as divisive as these guys are, they really are two sides of the same coin. And I think Hunter and Ramsey are, in essence, two sides of the same coin. And I think that's what makes the greatest battles is that you can see logic on both sides because they're much more similar than you actually think.
I think here's one way that I think about it. It's like in general about these characters, if you said, look, there's a moral conundrum and you can either do whatever the way that Tony Stark handled this moral conundrum, or you can do whatever Steve Rogers, the way they handled it. Right. And which one do you think is more likely to match up with your morality? The answer is Steve Rogers, hands down for me. But that doesn't mean that Steve Rogers is perfect or doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
It's like in your scenario of Pepper going back in time and kill Peggy. And it's like there was two scenarios there. One was you said, would Steve arrest her? Or Tony wanted to. Sorry,
Tony Steve wanted to kill. You're right. Tony wanted to kill Bucky. So fair point. If Steve wanted to kill, or I mean, right? Oh yeah, if Steve wanted to kill.
Well, and
Pepper,
this is the
point. Yeah,
this is the key difference: is that in both cases, Tony wanting to kill Bucky or Steve wanting to protect Bucky, they are both avoiding the law. Is that
good point?
Tony is taking the law into his own hands in one way, and Steve in another way. And what you have to do at a certain point is go, I mean, you don't have to do it. And there are reasons why you wouldn't do it. But like, is a certain point you have to go, like, we have to trust the system and that the system is going to work, and the thing is, that's really hard to do because sometimes the system doesn't fucking work. Yeah. There are, a myriad of examples of completely unjust things. But to me, abandoning the law and abandoning the system, you should fight within the system for justice and to make it work better. But to just throw it out is something that gets really, really scary. Like an example, this is what's popped into my mind lately of just like, because so much of our world today is about loyalty and whose team are you on. Right. And therefore, and so criticizing your own side, it's like, whoa, you're helping the enemy, this is, and that's not a thing.
I hate that. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, you were pissed off at Jake Tapper for the Biden book.
Yeah, I was, but he was never on my side. And the thing is, he's not doing it from a place that, I mean, we're going to veer off into, and I don't want to veer too far into politics. This is a film show, but like the thing with him, I was mad at him because this is an unfaithful argument that he's making. This is an opportunistic argument. And Chuck Todd over the weekend, the same thing. His bullshit, that's all opportunistic. They both sense there's more money in making the switch now, and we're going to make the jump now and then get more attention for ourselves, stay alive in the political sphere, because we sense that one side of the political sphere is now getting the more attention, the more money, the more views, the more clicks, the more ratings. So we're going to stay that way. We're going to go that route. We're going to make that change. And so for me, I think both of their sudden turns is disingenuous. Whereas someone who's been critical of Biden, but also praising Biden, and then eventually realizing that he's been hoodwinked, or he or she's been hoodwinked by possibly that they possibly protected him, because I am not conceding that at all. That's more legitimate to me. But to do a 180 that feels and screams opportunistic, it's frustrating. And he was writing that book for a long time. So you didn't tell me, you can't tell me that he couldn't have brought some of those subjects up over the last year during the election cycle and then didn't? That's disingenuous. So that's my reason with Jake Tapper. I got no problem with, like, AOC has criticized Biden. I got no problem with that. I have no issue with that. That's, if it's legitimate and if it's honest, I sense that, my own personal belief, then I got no issues with it. That's the difference.
So, case. Yeah, I mean, you and I frame it differently, but you're right. This isn't a political show. This is the one that popped into my brain. Is like, okay, you're the home plate umpire for the Little League game. Yeah. Your kid who has never scored is rounding third. They are coming towards home plate. They slide. They are clearly out.
Yes.
Do you call them safe?
No, of course not. What's he going to learn from that? He's going to learn. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's not just it's like, look, your job is to be the umpire.
Yes.
That's your job.
Yes.
That is a sacred job. And yeah, that means sometimes you're going to call your kid, your side, your kid out. Yeah. And that's what you have to do, because if you call them safe, you've just destroyed the whole game.
Right. I agree. But if you are calling them safe or out because you want to play to the crowd that has been screaming from one, and then that also makes you, it also means you're violating your code and your ethics, because you're doing it to please the crowd. And that's
agreed.
The difference is, yeah.
Your whole job, you have one job.
Exactly.
You just say, well, and the thing is, I actually think calling balls and strikes, there's actually a safety there.
Right.
If your standards remain the same the whole time, it's like, I saw this, they were out. This bunch of, it's like because this is why I was a bad competitor in every way, but I think that I love playing volleyball. Played tons of volleyball when I was young, played on club teams, stuff like that. And I would always call my own net. And that's not a thing when things are not terribly competitive. It's not a big deal. But when they got competitive, I'd be like, oh no, that was my bad, my net. And everyone on my team's like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Shut the fuck up. And I had to learn to not be so honest. Which also I think is appropriate. I don't think you should need to call your own net.
Yes, I agree. In team sports is a different situation, right? Like in soccer, you don't see them going, no, what? It's not a yellow. Put it back in your pocket. It's for the person who has been tackled. They're not jumping up at the ref going, don't give him a yellow. Exactly. It's totally fine. But I think individually, it's a whole nother ball. Like if I'm playing tennis and I win a point because the umpire missed the ball hitting the net, or the ball like scraping the top of the net, I think that's dishonest. I think you have to be honest in that situation. But I think that's the frustrating part when I'm watching. Oh man, we're just going off all over the place. But that's the frustrating part when I watch sports nowadays, like the WNBA. Now I watch it all the time now. Female basketball, I love it. I'm obviously, those who follow me know I'm a massive Caitlin Clark fan, but I see them getting into like physical altercations. This looks like the 1980s when you're watching the WNBA now. And I don't think these officials are up to snuff. And I don't think the people who run the league, the executives there, are putting enough pressure on to stop this stuff from happening. And it really doesn't help that commentators are like, they're just playing tough. They're just tough people. They're playing tough. That's the game. It's competitive. And I'm like, no, man, that's not the game. And it's never been the game. It's just people have accepted this because they come from styles of playing the game where you throw elbows and knock people down and purposely try to hurt the other person. And to me, that's where you start to lose the authenticity and the honesty of the game. So you can split between people, and I think this goes all the way back to the original point of the question, which is the authenticity of it all, right? Like there's a belief system, and it's two belief systems that are smashing into each other. One belief system, if we look at the WNBA, one belief system, just like mine, is we have to protect the purity of the game. We have to weed out the rough tactics, the underhanded tactics, the physical violence, the blindsiding people and knocking them down. We have to eliminate that. But another side goes, no, you're wussifying the game. Competitiveness is part of the game. You need to push people around. You need to impose your will. You need to be as physical as you can, get away with the refs. And that's fine because that's basketball. And these are the best professional athletes in the world. They should be allowed to do this kind of stuff. And so it's just slamming philosophies like Steve, like Tony, and like Hunter and like Ramsey. It is a world point of view of things, but those world points of views are convenient to how you see things versus how the other person might see things. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. I think you're right on point, actually, because I think part of the problem comes from is that we want to put this in a binary question. It's like,
yes,
you either obey the rules or you don't obey the rules.
Right.
Ramsey is right or Hunter is right.
Right.
Cap is right or Iron Man is right. And it's like, no, these are actually all complicated situations. There are things that I'm Team Hunter in Crimson Tide.
Right.
But there are not everything Hunter does. Do I go like, oh, I think that was the perfect thing to do? And particularly because we're operating in a lot of unknowns. Like, It's not, is the game going to be physical or is the game going to be perfectly coloring entirely within the lines? That's not reality. Of course, the game is people are always going to push the envelope of the rules in whatever sport there is. They're going to push it a little bit. And then the refs are there to say that's too far. And where that's too far happens, I mean, you've watched games where they weren't calling anything, where they were just, it was a let them play kind of game. And you've watched other games where they were calling everything. The whistle is blowing all the time.
Right.
And that's a choice. You get to go. And it's like, to me, and again, I'm not the sports guy you are. I have watched a lot on social media of the WNBA and some of the things happening. And I'm only seeing the highlight. I'm not watching the game. But I go, damn, that looked real rough. I mean, that got real intense.
Right.
And the one that was always weird to me, and again, people who are hockey fans are going to tell me, obviously say why I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, because I absolutely don't. Yeah. But the moment to me that's always was weird when you watched hockey was players would get in an altercation and then they would take off their gloves to fight. And the take off your gloves means I have now moved from a physical play to we're in a fight. And the fact that the refs would just let them fight for a while was always weird. It's like, no, we're not in the game anymore. The game, the game is not being played. They took off their gloves to punch each other. Yeah. It seems to me that should be entirely unacceptable in any circumstances at all. And yet for a lot of time in hockey, it wasn't. That was a normal thing you would see.
I agree. Well, it's because it's all about the energy of masculinity, right? And hockey was always seen as this really tough sport that masculine men got into. And look, football went through that in the early days as well. They don't have footage of it, but certainly if you read books about when football first started, professional football, these guys were getting into fisticuffs on the field, and so that's always been an element, I think, of a league when it's starting out. And you could argue WNBA, but look, that's been around for 20 years. So it is not starting out. It's just getting notoriety in ways that it never has before due to so many incredible players over the last few years, including Caitlin Clark. And so you see the same thing with hockey. At that time in the 70s and in the 80s, we were a different public, right? Because now you see the fights, they do let them fight, but the frequency of the fight the number of fights rather, is so far down what it used to be in the 70s and 80s. They weeded that out. And look, the same thing has happened to the WNBA. You'll go back in the 80s and 90s highlights, These guys were getting thrown all over the court and never getting kicked out of the game. Not even called a foul on sometimes. That legendary Kurt Rambis clothesline from, I think, Kevin McHale, like that wasn't even a fucking free throw. That wasn't even a foul. They didn't even call a foul on that. And so I just think we've changed where we're more aware of that kind of stuff and we're trying to weed that violent stuff out. And it's because kids are starting to go to the games now. Families are going to the games now. So they want to appeal to that. That's why it's changed in hockey as well, is that society has changed, but also appealing to families coming, making them outings has made that change. But I hear you. It's kind of weird to go back and watch this stuff in the past and go like, at the time, it certainly felt like it was okay. And now you're looking at it going, you'd never be able to get it with this now.
I think for me, and we can wrap this one up, is that it just goes back to what I've said a lot, is like not thinking of this as black and white and binary. There are absolutely times where Captain America has to disobey the orders of the army in order to rescue a whole bunch of people.
Agreed.
And there are times, and just going, I don't have to play by any of the rules always leads to trouble.
Yes.
Yes. Like, and so going and really, honestly, both Cap and Iron Man are really fucked up in Civil War. Cap is fucked up over his guilt about Bucky. Yep. Iron Man is fucked up because this guy killed my mom, and so they're not making rational decisions. And Cap is right. The system is not trustworthy, Right. I don't trust, William Hurt in Civil War, and all that stuff. Like, he's not trustworthy. Iron Man's not trustworthy. So it's like there isn't any right decisions to be made here. They're all just versions of wrong decisions.
That's a great point. It's an excellent point you bring up, Steve. Yeah, I mean I think you really nailed it in this short when you said they're both breaking the law. No matter what point of view they have in that situation, they're both still violating the law. It's just that they're violating the law convenient to what they want to do, and that's right. That's where a lot of us really need to take a look at ourselves in our lives, because are you willing to do the things that you want to do to adhere to your morality and your ethics and your principles? And when they get tested, are you really going to come through? And not everyone can do that, because it's difficult to ask, because we're human beings and we're naturally flawed from creation. And so however you believe we were created, we're naturally flawed from creation. And so that is the things that we struggle with all the time. Am I doing the right thing? Am I adhering to my code, or is my code overwhelming my common sense? Because not everything is, as you said, not everything's black and white. It's all, every situation is a case-by-case basis, and all the factors are always different for every case.
I have one last comment. It'll sound like a weird one, but just in this conversation is making me realize how incredibly lucky we were that George Washington was our first president.
Oh my God.
And that, yes, I know he's a slave owner. I understand that. I'm not trying to diminish any of that. But the fact is that in George Washington's worldview, personal honor and doing what was right and putting other things in front of self were central to how he thought about his life and how he thought about the presidency. And that established a thing that we followed for a long time, as in good ways and bad ways, and not imperfectly. But boy, I feel like we've lost that.
Yes, exactly. Who knew that a cherry tree story would carry so much weight for a president? But I agree with you. And if I could recommend right now, Prime Video, if you guys have Prime Video, there are some really good History Channel documentaries that are on there. I just watched the Roosevelt one. I'm going to jump into the Washington one, which I watched the first episode of, and the Ulysses Grant one. I'm looking forward to watching that one. These are incredible documentaries about these presidents. And it's good to remember that the presidency stood for things in the past. And it's not to say that they were, unflawed men, or they weren't at times corrupt, but there is something about it and that we look towards. And it's important to have that in power. And I think when you're looking at Hunter and Ramsey, there is a sense of like, who is in control of the situation? And are they adhering to the moral and ethics and principles that are correct in that situation, which is what leads to great conflict and enjoyable stuff to watch on screen.
I'm putting those on my list too. There are a bunch of things I'd love to watch. So thank you very much, Aaron Klister, for your question. It obviously led us on a wide-ranging journey through a whole bunch of topics, but that's what you get on the Cine-Files Shorts. And of course, Thank you to everyone on Patreon as well as Apple Podcasts. We could not make the Cine-Files without you. And for my partner, John Rocha, I'm Steve Morris, and we'll see you on another Cine-Files short.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Cine-Files Shorts. I am John Rocha, joined as always by my wonderful co-host, Steve Morris.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good, man. Good. Well, Steve, in the past, we've done some Cine-Files Shorts where you've been very gracious and sweet to interview me about things that I do in my life and the weird world of YouTubing and film criticism and all of that. But now I want to turn the table back on you and ask you about something that has been a very massive part of your life, and certainly one of the big reasons why the Cine-Files is as good as it is, and that is editing. And the thing is, that is something that I am just not 100% built to do. Am I aware of editing? Yes. And when I look at editing, do I edit my own stuff? Most of the time, yes, on my channel. But so I have a very, very small sample of what it's like to be an editor, and it seems to be a massive job. So I want to interview you about this and ask you first to start off with, when you watch a movie as an editor, are you catching the editing things that they do and tricks and techniques and what have you? Because I say that we've talked about how I catch things that actors are doing as techniques and tricks to make a certain scene work. How do you watch a movie as an editor catch this stuff? Does it stand out more than other people?
So, spoiler alert or behind the scenes alert, you kind of said you wanted to ask me about this when we were talking yesterday. Yeah. And my initial reaction was, I don't have an answer for you. I don't. And
it shocked me. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how to answer that question. I could tell you a lot about editing. And then I was thinking, I actually figured something I think really important out, which is that, and I'm trying to figure out if I can express this the right way.
Yeah.
It's not how do I watch a movie as an editor? It's that the way I watch movies is why I became an editor. That it's actually that, and it's what we do on the Cine-Files all the time, is that how I watch movies because I've described it to you now for 9 years.
Yeah.
It was always, is that when I'm watching, I'm actually kind of on a weird level aware of what each shot means in a sense. Of the why that we're cutting. But I wasn't, it's like Hoover would always say this, Hoover, who was my partner, the expression, which he did not invent, which is, I don't know who discovered water, but it certainly wasn't a fish. Is that I wasn't aware that the way that I watched movies was weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think it really is I was always fascinated by how you had that shot next to that shot, next to that shot. And then I understood something about the character or the story or what was happening. And I think it also comes from comic books because that's how I learned how to read, was reading comic books. And comic books are like a lesson in editing because what they are is shot to shot to shot, and those shots combine to create a story. And so my whole way of thinking about stories actually is related to editing. But when you ask the question, I didn't go, it was like, how do you watch this as an editor? It's like saying, how do you watch this as Steve? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to escape. That's just how I watch it.
Yeah.
But I actually think that is inherent in my personality. It's like really deep built in of how these pieces fit together.
Then let me ask a follow-up question that burrows deeper into this. Then, since you, and I totally understand what you're saying, you instinctually watched editing stuff stood out to you instinctually from the beginning, which is what made you fall in love with movies.
Well, it's just storytelling. It's part of storytelling. Yeah.
I would say the same thing for me with acting. Acting is what made me fall in love with movies. Yes, cinematography, yes, direction, all of that. But it was acting that was number one. And it's because what I naturally gravitated to. So it's a fascinating thing to hear you say that the editing and the storytelling is the thing that stood out to you. And so once you started learning the editing and getting into these techniques, did you start to put a dialogue or a glossary in your mind to the things you were seeing as you were watching these movies again? Oh, the editor chose to do this way. The editor chose to use this technique. The editor chose to edit in this way. Oh, fascinating. Like, when did that start occurring to you? And did that change the way you see these movies now, having more knowledge of the profession of editing?
It's such an interesting question because it's like you're coming at the questions from a direction that never occurs to me. And so like I have to rethink. And I think
Yeah.
part of it, so a couple of things about this. One is both you and I came up in the theater, both you and I acted as kids.
Yes, yes.
Both you and I directed theater, is that when you start directing, you start thinking about what are all the pieces that can create the thing that you want to create, like costumes and lighting and set and all the staging and all those kinds of things, and how the line is delivered. And so all of those pieces are the same pieces that an editor would use to put together a movie.
Yeah.
The only difference is in a play it all happens in real time, and in an editor in an editing it's all these little pieces that have to be assembled and disassembled. Yeah. And so I actually never thought the first probably 10 things I edited were all things I directed. So directing and editing to me are linked, because it's like, well, the process that led to that shot being in that place started in the rehearsal with the actor and looking at the performance and thinking about the story, because I was the director. Right. You know what I mean? And then the other thing about editing is frequently the director thought it would work this way. It does not fucking work. And so the job of and man, I'll tell you, I mean, I know I've said this to you before, but like after the assistants, when the director was, I wrote and directed and edited it. Yeah. But the director was not the biggest fan of the screenwriter. He thought he was okay. But the editor liked the screenwriter, but hated the fucking director. The director of the assistants was a pain in the fucking ass to the editor of the assistants because he fucked up so much stuff.
Wow.
And so that there's this weird, and so like I had screenwriter brain, and then I had director brain, and now I have editor brain. And editor brain is all about, how do I make this work?
Right.
And frequently it's because it doesn't work. What you're and that's what, I told this story before, but Spielberg, I've heard him tell a story where a young filmmaker came in on their first film and said, it's all a mess. I think I've ruined my life and everything I shot is terrible. I'm in post, the movie's awful. And Spielberg said, I've been making movies my whole life, and every single movie I've ever made feels that way. That's what post is like. So it's like, so it isn't so much like the editor chose this to get this effect. That's totally true. Right. But it's the editor is scrambling with all these things. And there's sorry, I'm going to stop because I could ramble endlessly about editing.
Keep going. Don't stop yourself.
Here's the thing that
keep going.
The way that editing really works is it's an emotional relationship between the editor and what's happening, the footage. Mm-hmm. And what's happening, what you have to do, it's a very strange job, because you have to be able to reset your emotional brain and go, I am now going to watch this scene that I've watched 88 times and I hate, and I'm going to watch it as if I've never seen it before in my life. Right. And try to have an emotional experience. And then you see, you're watching and you go, I'm kind of bored. And then something interesting happens. And you see like an actor kind of gives a look, or they have an inflection in their performance. You're like, that's interesting. Yeah. And then you take and you go like, what would it be like if this reaction shot happened when that person said that thing? Right. And you put them together and suddenly magic occurs. And you go, oh, I felt something. I've been bored for the last 6 hours trying to make this fucking scene work. And now I felt something. And then you follow that. And then that creates a story. You know what I mean? It's like, well, if they had that reaction to that, and this is where the meaning of the scene was created. Because that reaction shot I used, it might have been before the director said action. They might have looked to their left because someone called their name. But for whatever reason, that reaction shot created meaning with this line reading. And then you're like, oh, I have a relationship. Suddenly the characters have come to life. And now we're following that. And this, so editing is it is a not, you think of it as an intellectual job, but it's a very kind of emotionally intuitive job,
Right. So again, I'm going to swing back to my initial question.
Sure.
Do you catch techniques when you're watching a movie? Do you catch editing techniques when you're watching a movie? And do the techniques affect your appreciation or disappreciation of the movie? Like, do you ever see a movie go, oh, like I do sometimes, oh, the actor's mailing it in, or, oh, they're just like, they're not fully dialed into it. Oh, they're using tricks by using furniture to cover up there. Do you ever watch a movie and catch cheap tricks that editors are using? And does that take away your enjoyment of the film?
I mean, you've known me long enough to know that I am a strange man in many ways. I don't think quite the way a lot of people do. And part of it is, it's funny. I'm going to say almost the opposite of what I said before. Mm-hmm. What I said before is that when you're editing, you have to be emotionally available to what's happening. That's totally true. I think part of it, it's also that I can have myself be emotionally unavailable, which is that that there is always a part of me, as you've known me for a long time,
Yeah.
even in intense situations, that is sitting back a little bit. You know,
Yes.
I am not the most. If you were to list our friends and say, list all of our friends from the most in the moment and present to the least in the moment and present, I'm more on the least side. You know, I
Yeah.
think that's how people. But that in a way, that is a detriment in my life in lots of ways. But it's a superpower in terms of directing and editing,
Right.
because I'm not fully in the. Even if I'm crying and moved, there's part of my brain that's calculating and watching everything that's happening, and even aware of, oh, you are moved because of that.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm not that in the moment. And so when I'm watching a movie, oh yeah, I'm totally aware. I'm frequently aware, particularly when obviously we're doing it with the Cine-Files where I'm really watching it. But I'm like, oh, they cut to that moment to have me feel that thing.
Right.
They
Oh,
wanted to remind me of that so
Yeah.
that, you know, it's like we were just talking about Jaws, and we just had the scene where they mention barrels and knots and air tanks and the shark cage and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, I can see, you know, the little ticker in my brain is going, oh, exposition, 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 exposition. But and to answer the next question is, in the good movie, all of that stuff happens seamlessly. Like, so if I'm tracking the story part where intellectually I'm going, we have to get these 9 expositional points out.
Right.
And I'm tracking the emotional part, which is I want to be completely 100% emotionally involved in the film.
Right.
Well, that scene we just did from Jaws is a perfect example, which is all the expositional things are happening, but I am totally emotionally involved in the scene.
Right.
None of them are detracting. So a version where it's what you're describing, where I watch an editor pull a trick, it's like, oh, you had to get that exposition out. Yeah, I saw it. That wasn't that smooth, man. You know, you didn't, it's out, but it's pretty ham-handed. Or the reverse, where it's like, oh, you're really working hard to make me feel sympathy for that particular character. You put on the soft music, you cut to that close-up and the reaction shot where they're obviously hurt by what they said, but guess what? I'm not that emotionally involved. You know, I see what you're trying to do, and it's working. It's, you know, it's there, but it's not in the great movie realm, you know.
Yeah, well, so then let me ask you this next thing, because like the thing we love about movies and what we talk about the most are directors and actors, right? Those are the two things we talked about the most. Then cinematographer and score, I think, right afterward. The editing doesn't really get talked about in the same level that acting or directing or cinematography or scores or composing scores rather gets talked about. So do you personally, as an editor, because I know you're a director as well and a writer as well, but and a producer as well, but as an editor, are there certain editors that you follow? Like, because we can revere directors and actors and cinematographers and composers, but are there editors whose movies you'll go see because they edited that film, or is that not quite your level of editing fandom, so to speak, when it comes to movies?
Yeah, I don't have a strong. I really don't. I mean, obviously, I know we talked about, you know, Verna Fields. We talked about Walter Murch.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great editors. Robert Wise, but no, I'm not in editing fan clubs. Well, and part of it too is, you know, cinematography is by its nature a showy art.
Yes, right.
Editing is in general. I never want I don't want an audience to know that I cut. I don't want them to see an edit.
Gotcha.
Because my job is to have them so totally involved in the story that they're not thinking about anything else. And it's different with cinematography, because with cinematography, you're watching Apocalypse Now or you're watching Lawrence of Arabia, or would name you whatever gorgeous movie you're watching.
Yeah.
That gorgeous shot of the desert in Lawrence of Arabia is not detracting from the story. It is part of the story.
Right.
My fancy editing, if you notice, hey, look at how he edited that scene, I don't think you generally can be involved in a story and having that thought, you know? And so, like, and particularly, I've said many times, my greatest editing is editing where I was fixing mistakes or solving problems.
Right.
And so nobody knows what those problems were, and so they're not supposed to see it. There's other great editing I did. There's particularly challenging editing, which at some point I can explain to you, but where in the second shark documentary, I took 2 stories that this guy told about encounters with sharks, and I combined them into one story. Now, that is messing with the truth in all sorts of ways, and I thought about it quite a bit, and it is among the best editing I've ever done.
Wow.
And no one will know it because they think it's one story.
Right.
And of course, if I point out to you how obvious it's two different stories, once you see it, you won't unsee it. But like, this is sometimes editing's a weird, again, I go back to the word magic, is that there's times you take two shots that don't have emotional content and you put them together and suddenly you feel something.
So when you're editing a new project, and let's say it's not your project, right? You're getting, like you said, the shark documentaries, things of that nature, or other things that, because I think you shot some of the stuff right on the shark documentaries.
Well, I'm the director on the shark documentary, so I shot a large portion of it, and I was really in charge. Yeah, and I wrote it all. So that one I'm more in charge of.
Okay, but you have worked on projects where you weren't. Yeah. So when that happens, do you take the direction from the director? Look, this is the story I want to focus on, or do you follow the script, or do you go? Okay, I know what the basic plot points I'm supposed to hit on this are, but I'm going to discover the movie as we're editing the situation. Like, how does that work when you're handed gobs and gobs of film?
Let me tell you the whole process, because this is actually kind of interesting. So, and this is the professional movie making process, not the indie filmmaking process. This is like you got a budget, you got a real editor,
right?
So, directors shooting the movie, dailies are coming in every day. Dailies go to the editors every day.
Right.
And so every day the editors are going to sync the sound. So they get the audio and the video, and they're going to put them together. They're sync them, and they're going to organize all their footage into scenes and shots and things like this.
Right.
And then they're going to put together what's called a first assembly. And they'll be doing this while the director is shooting.
Yeah.
And what the first assembly is, so, and you've seen this on a movie set, obviously, is that the director will shoot, they'll say cut, and then they'll say, if you're on film, print it.
Mm.
And so they might do 7 takes of a scene, and they say print takes 3, 5, and 7.
Right.
And then they'll frequently give notes. The script supervisor has a big script, and they'll say to the script supervisor, hey, so take 3, the beginning is great, the end is terrible. Take 5 is pretty good all along. And take 7, the end is great, but I'm not sure about the beginning. And then that is a big binder with all of these notes. And then that goes to the editors. And the editors go, okay, take 3. And they read the notes of what the director said. Right. And they read the script. And then they have the storyboards, they have the shot list, they have everything. And the job of the first assembly is to try to put together exactly the movie that the director envisioned when they wrote the script and shot the movie. I'm not going to be creative. I'm not going to rearrange scenes. I'm not going to cut a single line. I'm going to try. Okay, he liked the beginning of take 3. I'm going to use the beginning of take 3.
Right.
And you put together assembly. And the goal is that the director wraps the shoot. They go off to Tahiti for a week, sip pina coladas because they're so fucking stressed out. And then they come back, and that extra week has given the editors the time to finish the first assembly because they've been working the whole time the shoot's been going on.
Right.
And that first assembly is the most horrible, awful experience any director ever has in their entire life. It is literally, you want to shoot yourself. Everything you've done doesn't work. Your whole conception of the movie is terrible. The movie is terrible. It is fucking awful. That is, and I guarantee you almost every single director has experienced this. It is terrible. Right. Okay. And so but my job as an editor when I was hired is to deliver what the director thought they wanted.
Right.
And then we're going to have a conversation and we're going to say, okay, what's working, what's not? What are we feeling about this? And we're kind of address things. And we're kind of come up with a plan between me and the director. Right. And I have strong opinions, and I have strong opinions when I'm editing. But it's the director's movie. And so we come up with a plan and say, well, I want to go this way, and this way. And my job is to execute that plan.
Right.
And we'll probably go scene by scene at this point and kind of go through things. And we'll come up with the first rough cut. And the first rough cut, now probably there is a little bit of music in it. There is, some of the things that were terrible in the assembly have gone away.
Yeah.
And it's kind of refocused. And the first rough cut might be the first one you show to other humans.
Right.
To see how the movie's working. And then what's usually happening is that parts of the movie are working and parts of the movie are not working. And now we have to do a diagnosis and we have to go, okay, I think it's this, like, for instance, in The Assistants, the idea of The Assistants was there was a producer who loved his friends, did all this work to make a movie happen for his friends, and in the end betrayed his friends.
Yeah.
But to me, you had to like him first so you could be upset at the betrayal. Mm-hmm. And what everyone felt was, oh, he was an asshole at the beginning. And then he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. And I went, fuck, that is not the movie I was trying to make. And then you go through and you go, and this is what you would do with an editor is you go, or with a director. Okay, I think these are the 6 moments in the movie that are causing people to dislike this character.
Right.
So how can I adjust, either cut, adjust, change the music, change the shots so that it's more positive. Like, for instance, in The Assistants, one of my favorite scenes that the lead actor auditioned with and was amazing. It's why I cast him in the movie, was the hardest scene I ever had to cut in the film. I think it was 38 times. I cut the same scene trying to make it work. And it's one where he's being supportive of his friend and giving him a pep talk, basically.
Right.
And it just never worked. And and I finally cut it the best way I could. It never was successful in the way I wanted it to be. And I was talking to Chris, the actor, and he said, "Oh, Aaron, the other actor, was fucking with me on the off-camera lines and pissing me off and like making faces at him, trying to get him to break. And so he was getting more and more angry at this person. And that, of course, affected his performance." And I'm like, well, fuck. No wonder I couldn't cut the fucking scene, because there were things happening behind the scenes that I, as the director, weren't aware of. So that's what you do. And then, and there's this process. And sometimes it's putting a music cue in. Sometimes it's cutting a storyline. Sometimes you cut one line out of a scene or add a reaction shot and suddenly, oh, I feel something.
Right.
And then, like I said, you follow that.
Well, then, do you feel that editors are respected properly and the right amount in Hollywood now? Because we always hear these terms. They saved it in the editing room. They discovered the movie in the editing room. But you don't go like, oh, I've got to go see that movie because this person edited it, right? And you say to yourself, like, why? So I guess I'm asking you, is it an occupational hazard that the instinct of the editor to be is to be as unnoticeable as possible, yet it's kind of a hidden truth that a majority of movies or a lot of movies are saved by the editor, yet they never get the credit that like a director is going to get? And how, do you ever think about that? What do you feel about that when people say that kind of stuff?
Well, what's really funny about your question is that on some level, I'm like, yeah, it's great. I mean, and this is what I mean. So I was an actor. I'm not comfortable with praise. You've probably seen that before.
I know this.
And when I directed my first play, or the first good play I directed, when I did Brothers, which you heard me talk about.
Yes.
And I was sitting in the theater for the first performance in the back row. And the audience, it was a big hit. It was a big moment in my life. And I'd written and directed this play. And to sit in the back of the theater, I wasn't on stage.
Right.
And watch people enjoy the thing that I had made, but not have me in the picture.
Right.
Was the best. That's what I love. I don't actually like praise that much.
Right.
Like, and I've said this to you many times. I want people to love the Cine-Files. Like, I don't, like, if they love me, or occasionally people have talked about how the Cine-Files is edited. I put a lot of care and a lot of love, and I have very strong feelings about how to do it and how to do it the right way. And if nobody ever comments on it, that's totally cool with me.
Right.
It really is. It's like if they love the show. Like if they go, man, I don't know why, the Cine-Files, I just want to listen to that all the time. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
Yeah. But I'm asking you though, do you think editors are revered properly?
No, because you can't be. Well, and this is the thing. How much time have you been in an actual editing room where someone's editing like performance?
Rarely. Maybe, I don't know, 5 hours in my life, probably tops.
Because it's really fucking boring.
Yes, I mean, which is why I can't.
Super boring.
It drives me insane. Yes,
it is meticulous. It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of attention to detail. But the people that say they saved it in the editing room, they're the people that they're the people who saw their first assembly and it was a total fucking disaster, and then watched the slow, methodical process of turning it into a good movie. But that's the only way to get it. You can't watch the movie and get it because you can't see how they got there. Right. You can't see that well, and it's like, how much time do you spend refining a moment?
Right.
Like we talked about Spielberg and Ben Gardner's head falling out of the boat.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not quite, and this is what you do in the editing room all the time, is you're like, it's not quite there.
Yeah.
And there are times, I mean, I do a lot of stuff with you and where I like stumble over my words, or I say, when we record, I'll frequently say things 2 or 3 times because I didn't say it well. And then the 3 times I said, they don't match. And then I go like, I have to find some way to put these together. And I'll do sometimes I've done things with both things you and I have said where we had lots of stumbles, and I took all the stumbles out, rearranged it a little bit, and put it together in a way that because my goal I feel, is to create the best version of what you're trying to say and the best version of what I'm trying to say, and make us sound as articulate and suave and witty and perfect as I can.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do some complicated moves to do it, and hopefully nobody will ever notice them at all. You know,
Yeah.
they'll just think, wow, John sounds smart.
Or yeah, both of us have a good exchange. Yeah. And you know, I think that's that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I am not an editor. I don't have an editing brain. It's a lot for me to edit my own videos, which is why I don't edit my own videos long form. I have to hire people to edit those, which I rarely do because editors are expensive. The good ones are expensive. Because when I try to edit my own stuff, I fall asleep. I literally fall asleep when I'm editing. I can't believe how many times I've tried to edit stuff and I just fall asleep 2 or 3 minutes into the editing because it's so boring to edit.
It is
for me, which is why
it's boring.
Yeah, well, I just revere people who can stay awake and do it. And so when we talk about editing, I'm always fascinated by the people who are editors like yourself, who are able to be in there with like hours and hours and hours of footage and find the movie or find what the movie is supposed to be, or the TV show or the YouTube video, whatever. It's a fascinating thing. And so I just wanted to talk to you about it for a little bit and ask you questions about it, because I think some of our listeners would enjoy this conversation about editing. And maybe some of them listening to us are burgeoning editors and will get something out of this conversation. And if nothing else, it's a window into what, you know, you do really well on the show and outside the show.
Well, thank you. Since we're on this, and I don't know where to come back, and like I said, once you get me started on certain topics, it's hard to stop me. Can I tell you two more quick stories?
Okay.
The first thing about the patience is that anyone who is of my generation, I'm the last generation who cut film.
Right.
Which meant I had a razor blade and tape and had to cut film together. And the level of patience it took, because you would go, okay, I want to take 2 frames off of this shot. So you take it off the moviola, you get out your razor blade, you cut the 2 frames off, you slice them together, and you take those 2 frames and you put them in a box or a bin or an envelope or something, because you might have to find them again. And then you go, oh, you know what? I think I want to add one of those frames back in. And then you have to shuffle through thousands of little pieces of film and hold them up to the light to find the 2 frames that you're missing, to cut one of them and put them back in. So if you can get through that, then the patience of digital editing is like, it's way faster. I mean, it's just so much easier. That's the first thing. This is actually how I edited documentaries. And I just think it's interesting if you're interested in editing. So I'll share it, which is I would get these really long, you know, when I did the first Shark Doc, they handed me 240 hours of footage for a 1-hour movie. And so I had to watch 240 hours of footage, and there's tons of stuff in there. And I had to find out what the movie was. And the second Shark Doc wasn't quite as long, but it was a lot. And what I did was I have a very organic way of approaching documentary editing, which is I don't know what the movie is. So what I would do is I take all the interview footage and I go, okay, every time that someone talks about fear in a Great White Shark movie, I'm going to put it in one timeline. Every time they talk about life on the boat, I'm going to put it in a different timeline. Every time they talk about shark predation, I'm going to put that in a timeline. Every time they talked about the critter cam, I put that in a timeline. And so what I would have was I would have a timeline with 2 hours and 30 minutes of people talking about fear. I have a timeline of an hour and a half of people talking about the boat. And then I would just watch it. And I would watch it and I would go, anytime I see something that I 100% guarantee will not be in the movie, I'll cut it out. So if someone says, oh yeah, you know, I just love sandwiches. I could eat sandwiches all day. I'm like, you know what? I don't think this sandwich thing's going to go in the movie. I cut it out. And now I have the 220 hours of talk about fear is an hour and a half.
Right.
And now this other one, and I just watch them all and they're getting shorter and shorter. And then as I'm watching people talk about fear, because I divided them into the same topics, I go, oh, you know, this thing that this person said at minute 12 kind of relates to what this person says at minute 1 hour and 4. So I just put them together and they're next to each other. I'm like, that's interesting. And then I watch it again. And now it's down to a 40-minute piece. And now it's a 30-minute piece. And now each of these pieces I'm starting to put together and see patterns. And I go, oh, now I kind of have a run of 4 different lines that sort of fit together, making this point. And then I go, well, that might come well after this thing that I have in this other timeline. And I'll bridge it with a piece of narration. And I start to assemble a structure of a movie.
Wow.
But it's a very organic process because what I like, and if you watch the Shark Doc, this is what I'm proud of, is it feels as if it's just a conversation. Even though it's interviews and narrations happening at all different times, shot over a course of a couple of years. it feels continuous because that's how I constructed it organically.
That's fascinating. Well, there you go. That's before we get into a medium, we should stop here. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Cine-Files Shorts, and big shout out to Steve for being willing to be interviewed about this. Because as he said, he doesn't like praise, doesn't like the spotlight on him. But occasionally, I like to ask him questions about this.
But I do like to talk.
Yeah. Well, that's fair point. Yes, and so especially about things that you really enjoy talking about. So it was fun to hear those sides. I think, and maybe some of you got something out of this, and it gives you a different point of view or more perspective about editing and the importance of editing in film. Because we don't always spend a lot of time talking about the different jobs that go on behind the creation of some of the greatest films that we enjoy. And so when we get a little time to talk about it, it's always fun. So thank you, Steve. And thanks to all of you who support us here on the Cine-Files. We appreciate you all madly, especially our patrons, especially those members who are part of the advisory board who we enjoy talking with every month. And if you want to join our Patreon and keep supporting the show, head on over to the patreon.com/the-Cine-Files. And for my partner, Steve Morris, I am John Rocha. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the Cine-Files Shorts.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Cine-Files Shorts. I am Steve Morris here with my partner, John Rocha.
Hello.
And every, I would say, quarterly term on the Cine-Files, we decide to torture each other with the wonderful FMK suggestions from our patrons and maybe some of our own if we have them. And John, would you like your first Fuck, Marry, Kill?
Bring it on, man. Bring it on. I'm in the mood.
Well, it is the season of the Coen brothers, and so Casey Taverna has a Coen brothers-centric suggestion. Our choices are, we actually have two. We have a comedic one and a serious one. First, let's start with comedy.
Okay.
John, Raising Arizona, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and The Big Lebowski.
Ooh.
I think this is brutal, frankly. Casey, I think you're a cruel taskmaster to ask us a question like this.
Oh man, this is tough. I guess I would have to. I guess my initial reaction is I would F Raising Arizona. I would marry Oh Brother, and I would probably have to kill Big Lebowski.
You're killing the dude?
I know. People love Lebowski. I don't love Lebowski the way other people love Lebowski. I enjoy it. I appreciate it. When I watch the movie, I certainly have a good time watching the film. And I've certainly come to appreciate it more over the years. But I mean, Oh Brother that's my Virginia childhood. Like that is just so huge within me. And the jokes really work well. And the Odyssey references, all of that just, for me, I just enjoy that movie more. Plus the soundtrack is one of my favorite soundtracks ever. And there's just so much about it that speaks to me as a boy who grew up in the country, basically, that I thoroughly enjoy. And Raising Arizona, I've said, is is just like one of my favorite Coen Brothers films. And that's a big wham bam, thank you, ma'am, get in and get out type of movie. I won't watch it 100 times, but I will watch it. When I watch it, I'm having the greatest time. So I would have to kill Lebowski, only because I don't ever catch myself going on, oh, let me put Lebowski on, So that's my answer.
I mean, I think those listening just have to know that these are impossible choices. You are asking us to kill amazing things.
Yes.
And so there is no right way to do this. And I have now changed my answer 3 times while you were talking. My initial instinct was to kill Oh Brother.
Oh, wow.
Because Raising Arizona is what introduced me to the Coen brothers. I've always loved it. I think it's funny as hell.
Yeah.
And Lebowski is like Lebowski, it's a movie for the ages.
Yes.
But then I started thinking, like, you know what I'm actually going to do? And it's really weird. So the reason I'm keeping Lebowski and how I'm keeping it is like in a relationship, you want your relationship to build over time, to deepen.
Yeah.
Each time you return to it, you find more. And that is definitely how I feel about Lebowski.
Right on.
Was sort of liked it when, as we said many times, liked it when I first saw it, didn't think much of it. Every time I watched it, it got better and better. And I saw more and more there. And I'm like, you know what? That kind of sounds like a marriage to me. It's like if you can go back over and over again and get more and more and look at it and it grows with you and it matures with you. Yeah. It's like, you know what? So I'm going to marry the Big Lebowski. And then this was the thing is Raising Arizona one of my favorites? Yeah, it totally is. Is it super funny? Yeah, it is. But it's kind of immature Coen brothers. It's me as a younger person.
Yeah.
And there are some very sexy elements to Oh Brother. There's the sirens.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There's some beautiful music. I've always found Holly Hunter sexy.
Sure.
George Clooney, one of the sexiest men alive.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually going to fuck Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And I'm killing Raising Arizona. This was tough, though. That was tough. I had to go through a lot.
That's a rough one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I can't disagree. Well, I disagree with your decisions, but I can't fault you for your decisions because you made logical sense here.
And we also have our serious Coen Brothers choice, John.
Okay.
And that is No Country for Old Men, True Grit, and Miller's Crossing.
Ooh, fuck off. Oh. Jesus. I had this lined up and then you dropped Miller's Crossing. Ooh, man. Oh, no. This is impossible. Impossible. Because I just got No Country in 4K from Criterion because they had the 50% sale the other day for like 24 hours. And I'd been waiting for it. And so, oh, man, oh, fuck, dude. You go first.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want me to go first?
Yeah,
so
you
can contemplate
I'm not
this a little
like
bit?
any of my answers, but go ahead.
Okay, here is the choice that I'm making. This is not the right choice.
Shit.
There's plenty of reasons to dislike but the first instinct I had is I'm going to kill No Country for Old Men.
Wow.
And here is why. That is a bleak movie. It is a difficult movie. It is a movie about death. It is a movie that doesn't leave you feeling happy about the world or anything like that. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to put myself through that. I'm going to kill it. Is it a great film? One of the greatest fucking movies ever made.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to kill it. And I believe that I am, I think I am fucking Miller's Crossing because it is a sex, even though there's no overt sex in the movie.
Yeah.
It is a sexy movie. I mean, Gabriel Byrne and Marcia Gay Harden, very sexy together. So I'm going to fuck that. And therefore I'm marrying True Grit, which I feel okay about. I feel there's a lot in this movie, a lot of layers. There's some comedy, there's some adventure, there's some drama, there's some deep ethical choices and complicated characters. That's my choice.
Okay.
Have you come any closer to an answer?
This is tough, but yes, I agree with you. I would fuck Miller's Crossing as well. I mean, Marcia Gay Harden is so hot in that movie. And the dialogue, everything turns me on about that movie. Like, it's why I love it as much as you'd think I'd marry it, but it's a dangerous movie. I can't marry that movie. That being said, though, I am going to marry No Country for Old Men. And that is really hard for me to say this because True Grit is a straight up Western. No Country for Old Men is a Western, but in a different definition of a Western. But there is so much about No Country that has affected me over the last few years as I've gotten older as a man. There's so much in it that I take from it that it is endlessly rewatchable for me and endlessly enjoyable and endlessly educational for me as a human being. And so I would think that a long-lasting relationship would be successful because of that, as I discover now with my lady outlaw. So for me, I would have to marry No Country for Old Men because I can't seem to quit it.
Yeah, I get that.
And I have to, but I take your point about it being bleak. You're 100% right. But then you know that I have an overall bleak point of view in the world. True Grit, although I am a kind of a happy person, but overall bleak point of view in the world.
Happy bleak, you know.
Happy, but
occasionally bleak.
Yeah, the bleakness. But I guess I would, and I'd have to kill True Grit only because I think there are times in the movie where it's a little, like the stuff near the end, I'm not always like 100% with Barry Pepper and Josh Brolin. It gets a little wonky in that area of the film overall. So because I have nothing negative to say about No Country or Miller's, I would have to ding True Grit in that way, even though I love that movie. And look, this in no way is an indication that I don't like that film. I love True Grit, and I can't wait till we do it on the do it again or do it for the first time on the Cine-Files. We've done so many movies, I forget that but I have to kill it in this particular situation, which is so tough for me to do. Yeah.
Well, I will say there has been, because we kind of put it out there, we've not done True Grit.
Oh, we haven't.
And there have been a lot of comments on Patreon saying they want us to do True Grit. So
I think we got to do it this year at some point. So yeah.
So there's a lot of Coen Brothers going on this year. All right. Do you have one for me, sir?
Yeah, let's get on. This is from Paul. This is an FMK team-ups edition, which I don't think we've ever had
Mm.
in FMK. So this is going to be a little bit tough here. Paul, thank you, Paul Sevilla, for sending this in. He labels it FMK Tough One. Al Pacino team-ups edition. So listen closely, everybody. Al Pacino and Russell Crowe in The Insider. Al Pacino and Johnny Depp and Donnie Brasco. Al Pacino and Gene Hackman in Scarecrow. Which one do you FMK?
Well, I've never seen Scarecrow. I mentioned this when we did our Gene Hackman thing, so I have no comment. So I guess that's easy for me. I'll just kill it because I've never seen it. I mean, I'd like to watch it sometime. Maybe I'd change my mind. I really like Donnie Brasco. I don't think I quite like it as much as a lot of other people do. It's really good.
Yeah.
And they're both great in it. But I think I marry The Insider. I think Russell Crowe is when I was just, kind of discovering Russell Crowe, and there's like one fantastic Russell Crowe performance after another.
Right.
So he's so great in it. And it's my kind of movie. It's a complicated ethical movie where it's in that All the President's Men sort of area of the media and speaking truth to power and all of those things and what sacrifices someone has to make to stand up. So that's really my kind of movie. Okay. So I'm marrying The Insider and I'm fucking Donnie Brasco, and I'm killing the Scarecrow only because I haven't seen it.
I'm in camp with you on killing Scarecrow because, again, I haven't seen it either, which I'm going to catch up on a lot of these Hackman films. Like Night Moves is coming out soon on Criterion, so I'm going to take a look at that one at some point. So, yes, I agree with you. Killing Scarecrow, 100%. However, I think I'm the reverse of you with this situation because The Insider is a film I've only seen twice, and I just don't have the magic love for that film that other people do. My co-host on the Hot Mic, Jeff Snyder, this is arguably his second favorite film ever made.
Wow.
He took me to go see it at the DGA when he had an extra ticket for a screening with Michael Mann there to do a Q&A, which was a great night, great experience. And I like the film. I just don't I don't love it the way other people do, but of course objectively it's an incredible film. So I will have to fuck that one because that's an in and out type of situation. I'm not going to call The Insider the next morning. I'm out and whatever. So that's the kind of approach I have there. So with Donnie Brasco, though, I love that frickin' movie so much. And I love the interactions between Johnny and Pacino. They're so moving and heartfelt and touching. And I just recently watched a TikTok with a scene from Jack and Jill where Pacino is in a beard at a Lakers game, sitting with Johnny Depp, and he's trying to go undercover. And they have such funny chemistry. So for me, that is endlessly enjoyable. And I quote that film all the time. Lady Owl loves Donnie Brasco. We quote it to each other all the time. And so it's just one of those films that endures for me for its own reasons. And I like the chemistry between them much more than I do between him and Russell or him and Gene, which I haven't seen. So I will marry Donnie Brasco for that reason, even though I can say Insider is arguably the better film. I just am drawn more to Donnie Brasco.
I think that's perfectly respectable. So our next FMK comes from Ryan Lieb, who has FMK Hollywood Edition.
Oh.
And here are your choices, John.
Okay.
For Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
For Halloween, its namesake Halloween. And celebrating the 4th of July is the film Jaws.
All right, so this is a lot easier than you might think for me, but I absolutely will marry It's a Wonderful Life. Come on, that's the movie. That's a tentpole film in my life. So I absolutely will marry It's a Wonderful Life. But I will F Jaws because Jaws is a great film. I love Jaws. Jaws never disappoints. I will call Jaws in the morning to see the next time we're going to do it. So for me, Jaws is absolutely endlessly enjoyable. I always have a great time, and it has that mixture of fear and joy at the same time, which I think is always great when you're talking about effing somebody. And I would kill Halloween. I only kill Halloween because I'm not a big Halloween person. And so I don't find myself drawn to the holiday as other people are. And although I appreciate the John Carpenter classic, and I think we did it on the show, I'm not drawn to put it on like other people are, even though I know it is absolutely top 10 greatest horror films ever made. It's just not one that I put on. So I can easily kill it and I won't miss anything. But if I was to remove It's a Wonderful Life or Jaws from my life and never see it again, I would be so remiss. I would miss that so much in my life.
So my answers are exactly the same as yours, and I'll give you my reasons.
Sure.
Like the big thing I think is that we have these are all-star movies in their genre. So It's a Wonderful Life, unquestionably one of the top 10 holiday movies ever made.
Yeah.
Jaws and Halloween, unquestionably in the top horror movies ever made. Here's what I see as the difference.
Okay.
First of all, like you, I'm not a huge horror guy. So right there, we know that it's going to be Halloween.
Right.
For me personally, and people can come at me if they like, the difference is that It's a Wonderful Life and Jaws aren't just in the top of their genre.
Yeah.
They are in the top movies made of all time, period.
Yeah.
Whether or not I put them both in the top 10, I'm not sure, but they definitely go both in my top 20. And frankly, and not only that, they're also two of my favorite movies ever made. Jaws is probably in my top 5 movies, period.
Right.
You know, and It's a Wonderful Life is right up there. I don't know exactly. Is it before Jaws? Is it after Jaws? Probably. I think is a greater film than It's a Wonderful Life by a little bit, by a hair.
Right.
You know, and so it's, and then it's like, am I going to marry Jaws? No. It's a scary movie with a shark and people dying and all that. No, you marry It's a Wonderful Life. That is a movie about family and community and love and everything that's good in the world and some things that are bad in the world. So of course, and Jaws, it's not a sexy film in the sense that there's anything sexy going on,
right?
Other than Chrissy going swimming briefly,
right at the beginning. Yeah, exactly.
But other than that, it is a sexy movie in the fact that it is an incredibly thrilling and exciting film. Yeah. So those are my answers.
Those are good answers. I like those answers. All right, do you want to do one more or a couple more? Where are we at right now?
Sure. What do we got?
Okay, so
yeah, do one more.
Okay, let's do this one. Mazzy McGregor has sent this one in, and it is a Billy Wilder FMK. So Some Like It Hot, Sunset Boulevard, and The Apartment. So which do you F, M, or K, Steve?
Honestly, this one's kind of easy for me.
Okay.
So I like Sunset Boulevard a lot. I fucking hate the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical of Sunset Boulevard. It's just the most repetitive theme ever.
What?
And so
Andrew Lloyd Webber being repetitive, that doesn't sound right.
I know. It's shocking. So that is lowered the movie.
All right.
It's a fine film. But Sunset Boulevard's not exactly a movie I go back to. I find the characters somewhat unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
And the fuck.
Wait, hold on.
There's no question about it.
You're struggling, and you just said this is an easy one.
No. I'm thinking about The Apartment a little bit because The Apartment's a hard movie.
Yes.
but the fuck has to be Something Like It Hot. I mean, it's Marilyn Monroe. I mean, there's just I just can't get around that. So I'm going to marry The Apartment, which is a serious and difficult film that deals with a lot of stuff.
Right.
But is a really, really good movie. Those are I'm killing Sunset Boulevard, marrying The Apartment, and fucking Something Like It Hot. How about you?
So I have to kill The Apartment because I've never seen it.
Oh, it's a good movie.
Which I know I've got to remedy that at some point. So that's already now this is the choice. This is a tough choice between the two, but I think I would have to fuck Sunset Boulevard because I do not want to be married to Sunset Boulevard. That is a difficult film. That is a heartbreaking film. That is an amazing film, but it is a film that absolutely leaves you, as you said, feeling bleak about the world, feeling bleak about Hollywood. And for all the jokes, like for example, there's a new series coming out on Apple TV Plus called The Studio with Seth Rogen. That's really good. We've watched the first 6 episodes. And that gives you a messed up but still funny version of Hollywood. Sunset Boulevard is the ugly, ugly underbelly that does exist and has existed in Hollywood since the beginning. And so it's a brutal film, and it's sad at the end with Nora Desmond and all of that. So I would, but I still appreciate it. So it would be crazy, unsettling, and wonky, but I would still fuck it, and as I used to do in my 20s and 30s. But Some Like It Hot is absolutely the marriage thing for me because I love that movie. It's eminently, it's always funny. It's every time I watch it, I thoroughly enjoy my experience watching it. And it's Marilyn Monroe. Who wouldn't want to be married to Marilyn Monroe if you could? be married to Marilyn Monroe. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, maybe it won't work out, but God damn it, you got to marry Marilyn Monroe. So for me, I would put that on the list there of all three of the films of the three of them. That's the film that I would marry. And plus, it's Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis, arguably in their prime as comedic actors, delivering some great moments, especially that end moment with Joey Lewis or Joey Brown, which is great,
yeah. So these are tough choices, and I feel like you and I have been through a lot now. I feel like our fans have put us through it once again. But I do want to thank you for all your incredible FMK suggestions, for all your short suggestions in general, which are always great. And of course, there is no Cine-Files without our supporters on Patreon and on Apple Podcasts. So thank you so much. We can't make the show without you. And for my partner, John Rocha, I'm Steve Morris, and we'll see you on another Cine-Files short.